Chapter 31:41. The rule of creation was born in the original power of the ruins of creation. As Lin Sun meditated, all kinds of mysteries about the rule of creation emerged one by one and were all comprehended by him. The word creation had many meanings. Sometimes it could be described as opportunity, and sometimes it could be described as nature. But most of the time, it was regarded as creation and nurture, creating the world, mountains and rivers, and nurturing all phenomena of the Great Way. The rule of creation was related to creation and nurture. As Lin Sun meditated, waves of waves emerged in his heart. The reason was that the rule of creation was too powerful. Mastering such power was like being the master of the creation of the world. The birth of a world originated from chaos. When chaos was created, heaven and earth were divided, and all phenomena were born. This was the power of the rule of creation. It could create a world in the chaos, and then nurture all phenomena of the Great Way in this world. This was different from the power of the eternal existence of the creation realm. The creation realm melted all kinds of power of rules, so they could create all kinds of matter, and had the ability to turn stone into gold and mortals into gods. The rule of creation was to create a world and nurture a real world with all phenomena of the Great Way. At this time, Lin Sun finally understood the meaning of the ruins of creation. Every single time the calamity of an era descended, the quintessence energy of the ruins of creation would create and nurture a new era of civilization, thus allowing the path of cultivation to continue on in a cycle. For example, the civilizations of all eras distributed in the ruins of creation were all created and nurtured by the ruins of creation. This was also what shocked Lin Sun. The ruins of creation was equivalent to the nest of civilizations of all eras. When those eras were destroyed in the era calamity one by one, they would appear in the ruins of creation, so that today hundreds of eras of civilizations coexisted here. It was like the fallen leaves returning to their roots. Of course, some eras of civilizations completely disappeared from the world, such as the immortal martial arts civilization of the last era. If so, does it mean that I can create one era after another by mastering the rule of creation? Lin Sun's heart trembled slightly, and he was shocked by this idea. No, the laws of creation can only create a world and give birth to the phenomena of the Grand Tao. However, taboo energies like life, time, and karma aren't created by the laws of creation. Soon, Lin Sun realized the problem and calmed down. This means that the ruins of fate can only create the world and the phenomena of Tao, but it can't create the taboo forces of life, time, karma, and so on. Interesting. Lin Sun thought of the ultimate. As one of the four great ruins of the Tao, the ruins of End seemed to be the destination and home of all things. Even the eternal figures that had fallen here would transform into the most primitive vitality energy and be buried within the ruins of End. When the calamity of an era arrived, the ruins of End would undergo a shocking change and release the vitality that was buried within it. In contrast, the ruins of creation represented the beginning and origin of everything, and it created a new civilization after the calamity of an era. It went on, growing and multiplying without end. If the ruins of creation is the starting point of everything, and the ultimate ruin is the end of everything, then what kind of secrets do the Kunlun ruins and the ruins of wonderful Tao each have? At this moment, Lin Sun was lost in his thoughts. In the past, he hadn't stepped foot onto the eternal path of the Tao, so it was utterly impossible for him to think of all these things. Only now did he suddenly realize that the existences of the four great ruins of Tao actually contained supreme secrets that were unknown to the world. Supreme secrets that were unknown to the world. Time passed day by day. On the third day of Lin Sun's closed-door cultivation, the news of the various divine clans responding to the High Sun clan and Jiang clan summons and deciding to send forces to annihilate Lin Sun in 10 days' time had spread to the divine city of creation. For a time, the cultivators in the city were in an uproar and trembled. It was also from this day onward that the cultivators that had gathered from the various civilizations of the various eras had hurriedly evacuated from the city. They didn't dare stay at all, as they were deeply afraid that they would be affected by the calamity that would arrive in 10 days' time. In merely less than a day of time, the exceedingly bustling divine creation city had become empty, cold, desolate, and empty. Only some people who weren't afraid of death chose to stay, but they were a very small number. All of this was found out by Wu Yang, Xing Jia, and the other old fellows, and they practically realized the severity of the problem at the first possible moment. This time, it wasn't just the forces of the High Sun clan and Jiang clan, but also all the divine clans in the world. They gathered all the eternal realm figures of the divine clans in the world to deal with Lin Sun. How could Wu Yang and the others sit still? They immediately set off for Silent Night Ridge to discuss with Lin Sun how to deal with this matter. Seniors, my father is currently in closed-door cultivation. Lin Fan and Su Bai stood guard in front of the closed door of the main hall. When he saw Wu Yang and the others arrive, Lin Fan cupped his hands in greeting and told them that Lin Sun was in closed-door cultivation. Wu Yang and the others frowned. 10 days later, the enemy's forces would arrive at the city. Time was too tight. Little guy, how long will your father be in closed-door cultivation this time? Xing Jia asked. Lin Fan shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Forget it. We'll just wait here. Wu Yang made a decision. The other old fellows also nodded when they saw this. Although the situation was urgent, they knew that if Lin Sun was at a critical moment of cultivation, they must not disturb him. Of course, if Lin Sun showed no signs of coming out before the enemy arrived, they naturally could not wait like this. At the same time, Lin Sun, who was in closed-door cultivation, was in a wonderful state of epiphany. Yesterday, he had thoroughly understood the profound meaning of the law of creation, and his great path law had also undergone amazing changes. Putting aside the other profound meaning of the great path, he had now mastered 4 kinds of supreme, forbidden Tao power. They were nirvana, time, the 5 sequences of the ultimate, and the law of creation that he had just mastered. Among them, nirvana was the core and the root of the power of the great path. The law of time was the condensation of the talent power of the devouring abyss. The 5 sequences of the ultimate and the law of creation came from the power of the 2 great path ruins respectively. It could be said that these 4 supreme Daos allowed Lin Sun to have a heaven-defying combat power that far surpassed those in the same realm on the eternal path. After understanding the profound meaning of the law of creation, Lin Sun's own cultivation also produced a wonderful change. It was as if a layer of window paper had been pierced, and it completely erupted. He wanted to prove his Tao and break through the realm at the first time, but at this moment, an unexpected change happened. The river diagram, the treasure that had been guarding over the divine city of creation for countless years, seemed to have sensed something. It immediately released an obscure and vast power, which shrouded Lin Sun's figure. Then, Lin Sun's figure disappeared out of thin air, as if he had been taken away from time and space. Everything that happened suddenly made him feel like he was finished. He was completely caught off guard and couldn't resist at all. Amidst the boundless and boundless chaos, a vast and mighty long river surged and surged, its beginning and end unknown. On the other hand, the images of the civilizations of the various eras floated within the vast river, and they were like numerous waves that revealed all sorts of unbelievable scenes. There were too many mysteries contained in an era civilization. There were all kinds of phenomena, boundless worlds, endless creatures, a wide variety of races, a complete cultivation system with strict hierarchy, but now, the phantoms of civilizations of various eras were reflected in a mighty long river of chaos. Such a scene shocked Lin Sun. He couldn't help thinking of one thing in his mind. All those years ago in the world of samsara and the rebirth of freedom, he'd once seen a vast and ceaselessly flowing river. However, that river reflected the strongest expert of every single Grand Tao realm in this era. However, this river that flowed amidst the primal chaos was different, and it reflected the civilizations of numerous eras. Where was this? As soon as this thought came to Lin Sun's mind, a wonderful idea emerged in his mind. This is the long river of eras, which exists in the origin of the ruins of creation. This place, like the mountain of 5 sequences in the ultimate ruins, the sea of fate in the Kunlun ruins, and the hill of wonders in the ruins of Tao, are the most forbidden places in the world. This was not a voice, but a kind of enlightenment, which naturally emerged in Lin Sun's mind. All of a sudden, Lin Sun was more and more shocked. He had seen a mountain of 5 sequences, namely Punlai, Yingzhou, Fanghu, Daiyu, and Yuanjiao, which were located in the deepest part of the ultimate ruins of Tao. But this was the first time he had heard of and seen the River of Eras in front of him. As for the Sea of Fate in the Kunlun ruins and the Hill of Wonders in the ruins of Tao, it was the first time he had heard of them. After a while, Lin Sun calmed down and asked silently in his heart, "Why am I here?" As expected, a thought emerged in his mind. Only by facing tribulations in the long river of eras can one have the foundation to achieve transcendence from the changing of eras. He has also walked on this road. Before Lin Sun could ask who this was, a tall and handsome figure emerged in his mind. The man was dressed in a green robe and carried an ancient sword on his back. He stepped on the waves of many eras and walked towards the vast distance. Chun Shi. It turned out to be him. Lin Sun's heart churned as he recalled the ethereal voice of Chun Shi's figure after he comprehended the mysteries of the Star of Creation. In the future, if someone can see through my layout here, perhaps it means that I am not the only one on this road. At that time, Lin Sun had wondered what kind of great way Chun Shi had walked on this road alone. But now, looking at the mighty river of eras surging in the chaos, Lin Sun finally understood. This path towards the Tao represented attaining true transcendence from the change of eras. And to achieve this, one must first face tribulations in the long river of eras in order to have the foundation to achieve transcendence. So that's how it is. Lin Sun understood it completely, and his eyes, which were as deep as the abyss, became bright. It's too late. There are only 2 updates today. I'll continue tomorrow. Chapter 3142. The chaos was boundless, and the river of Era was surging and flowing, which was shocking. Lin Sun stood in the void and asked silently in his heart, "Do all the mysteries I sense now come from the power contained in the river diagram?" A familiar thought sounded yes. So, the tribulation of creation realm that I should have ushered in will come here. Yes, if I get through this tribulation, I can also have the foundation to transcend the changing of the era. Yes, how powerful is this tribulation? In the long river of eras, there are 9 supreme cultivation civilizations. The tribulation you're about to undergo is the most powerful tribulation born from these 9 great cultivation civilizations. It's also known as the 9 tribulations of Tao. This tribulation of Tao is divided into 9 levels. When you step into the long river of Era, the tribulation will appear. I see. The doubts in Lin Sun's heart were swept away. He knew that the profundities he sensed came from the thoughts within the river diagram. He finally understood that the tribulation of creation he was going to face was completely different from that of other practitioners in the same realm. It was formed by the tribulations born from the 9 supreme civilizations. It was bound to be terrible. But for Lin Sun, it was an irresistible temptation. After this tribulation, he could get through the creation realm and have the foundation to transcend the changing of the era. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun closed his eyes quietly. Time passed by. When his state of mind, cultivation, qi, and soul were completely adjusted to the peak state, Lin Sun opened his eyes, took a step forward, and stepped into the mighty river of Era. Boom! The waves were surging, as if the civilizations of Era were crashing over. It was grand and immeasurable. Just that kind of breath made people feel incomparably small. If it were someone else, his mind would be lost in it in an instant. Lin Sun stood on the rushing river with his hands behind his back. His eyes were clear, and his mind was empty. He was like a dominator, looking down at the changing of the era with a calm manner. Just for a moment. Boom! His figure appeared in a strange civilization. Then, a breath of tribulation came, and all the 9 heavens and 10 earths turned into the color of darkness. The heavy tribulation clouds made the time and space distorted and chaotic. Lin Sun raised his head slightly, and a touch of fighting intent appeared in his deep eyes. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderclap that sounded like the beginning of the chaos resounded amidst the dark and oppressive heavens and the earth, and it shook the universe to the point it trembled and shook the surroundings. Soon after, beams of dazzling divine light tore through the darkness and swept out from the depths of the tribulation cloud. Impressively, they were figures that resembled supreme gods. There were divine lotuses that towered into the sky, connected to the 9 heavens and connected to the 9 hells. Chaotic rain of light flowed down from between the petals and leaves like a waterfall, and its aura was so magnificent that it blotted out the sky and blotted out the sun. There was a divine dark parasol tree that was rooted in the void. Its branches were like paths that led to the myriad of worlds in the universe, and its leaves were like numerous worlds that hung on its branches. There were bronze-colored ants that could hold up the heavens. One after another, the rulers of the cycle of reincarnation arrived. The aura of every single one of them was formidable to an unimaginable extent, and they far surpassed existences that had surpassed the realm of principles. Their entire bodies seethed with the vast aura of calamity and destruction. At the same time, Lin Sun had a mysterious feeling in his heart. This was the 9 spirits' supreme tribulation. It was from the immortal martial era, or, in other words, the last era. Every single one of those figures represented a supreme existence in the immortal martial civilization. In other words, this first level of the tribulation represented the supreme tribulation of the immortal martial era that was targeted at experts of the creation realm. Bang! Lin Sun didn't have too much time to think at all, and as soon as the 9 supreme figures that seemed like supreme gods appeared, they attacked Lin Sun. The chaotic divine lotus swayed while boundless chaotic chi descended from it, and it was like a divine chain of order that whipped down towards Lin Sun. The divine dark parasol tree swayed while leaves fell from every single branch, and they transformed into numerous images of worlds that overlapped and smashed down towards Lin Sun. At other places, supreme sword insight surged into appearance and tore through the sky. World-crushing techniques soared through the sky and obliterated the heavens and the earth. Roars that rumbled like thunder shook the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, and in an instant, Lin Sun's figure was drowned by various terrifying and unimaginable forces. This level of tribulation wasn't just terrifying, it was completely abnormal, and it was like a taboo. In just an instant, Lin Sun suffered a heavy injury, causing his countenance to turn pale, and he was in an extremely sorry state. After all, with his current cultivation realm, he was able to surmount a realm and kill existences at the intermediate stage of the creation realm. Yet now, he'd suffered injuries repeatedly in merely the first level of the tribulation. But in next to no time, Lin Sun steadied his figure, and then he released all the strength he possessed to fight the 10 experts by himself with all his might. He'd forgotten about life and death, forgotten about time, forgotten about everything. Only a strand of surging and burning, unyielding battle intent remained in his body. Kill, kill, kill. Lin Sun was completely oblivious to himself, and there were no thoughts in his mind or body. It was even to the extent that he didn't know that it was precisely in such a battle that his great Tao reserves were awakened and released in an unprecedented manner. After an unknown period of time, bang, the figures of the 9 supreme experts collapsed with a bang. Even this expanse of the heavens and the earth seemed to have been blasted apart and vanished without a trace. In this seemingly empty world, only Lin Sun's lone figure remained, and his entire body was tainted with blood. But his boundlessly terrifying fighting spirit and battle intent seemed like the most dazzling light in the world, and it illuminated the heavens. At this moment, Lin Sun felt that an indescribable transformation was taking place all over his body. His mind, cultivation, soul, and great Tao seemed to have experienced an extreme tempering and baptism in the furnace. The taste of transformation made Lin Sun feel so comfortable that he almost groaned. Then, he found that after experiencing the first 9 spirits tribulation, his cultivation seemed to have been shattered and reshaped once, and it became stronger and stronger than before. Only by fighting with all my strength can I get a new life, like transformation in the tribulation. This is the magic of this tribulation. Lin Sun was enlightened. The might of the 9 spirits' supreme tribulation was incomparably abnormal. But it was also because of this that one's potential could be completely unearthed, and all the power that one grasped would undergo the most fundamental tempering. Only then would one be able to obtain the most extreme transformation. In other words, anyone who was in this tribulation would be injured, and they would feel as if they were in a furnace that was tempered over and over again. Clatter, just as Lin Sun felt the changes in his body, the scene in front of him suddenly changed, and he appeared in a new era of civilization. This era was called Shaman, and the most powerful tribulation born in this era was called Shaman's Tribulation, and the tribulation aura it produced was aimed at the physical body of practitioners. Compared with the 9 spirits tribulation, the power of the Shaman's Tribulation was undoubtedly stronger. In a short period of time, Lin Sun's Taoist body was shattered dozens of times. His flesh and blood splattered, his tendons and bones were broken, and it was a horrible sight. But every time it was shattered, Lin Sun's Taoist body was reshaped. This was the power from the nirvana ultimacy, and it allowed him to experience the cruelest destruction and reshaping in this tribulation. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun could only bear it, maintain a little clarity in his mind, and try his best to prevent his consciousness from being drowned by the endless pain. In that case, it undoubtedly meant that he had failed to pass the tribulation. Fortunately, this sort of destruction and reconstruction only took 10 minutes before it ended. Even though it was extremely painful, Lin Sun felt unprecedentedly comfortable when this tribulation ended. The strength emanated by his Taoist body that had experienced countless slashes and remodeling couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as it was in the past. The third tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation, which came from the martial era. This tribulation was aimed at the fighting will and fighting skills mastered by practitioners. When the tribulation came, it was like all the martial gods came together, and the sky was filled with the figures of the supreme martial artists who were extremely powerful. In this tribulation, Lin Sun was like being in the battlefield of destruction, fighting alone against 100,000 troops, fighting and killing enemies. When the tribulation ended, Lin Sun's fighting will and fighting skills were also tempered to the extreme. The power released by his every move had the momentum to suppress the sky. The fourth tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation, which came from the Illusion era. This tribulation was aimed at the state of mind. Comparatively speaking, it was the easiest for Lin Sun to go through this test, because his state of mind had already been honed to an unprecedented level. He had seen through the falsehood becomes falsehood when it is true. He had sought the truth from the heart, comprehended making something out of nothing, and had experienced many incredible tests. Even though the power in the tribulation was so terrifying that it could easily disturb the mind of an eternal realm expert, it couldn't affect Lin Sun's state of mind. The fifth tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation of Soul, which came from the Soul era. This tribulation was aimed at the soul, and it could be called the strongest tribulation in each era. When Lin Sun experienced this tribulation, he also had a feeling that he had a narrow escape from death. It was too horrible. It was like a struggle between life and death. In the end, only a wisp of his consciousness survived. When this tribulation was over, his Dharma spirit was completely remodeled, and his spirit was intertwined with profound laws inside and outside. The sixth tribulation was called the Supreme Martial Tribulation, which came from the Devil era. This tribulation was aimed at a more terrible state of mind. In the Great Tribulation, Lin Sun faced tests of good and evil, black and white, right and wrong. Killing one person could save thousands of people. Should he kill or not? Someone once slaughtered a city, but then turned over a new leaf and later saved the lives of 10 cities. How should he be judged? Similar tests appeared in this tribulation, and they also knocked on Lin Sun's state of mind again and impacted his cognition and judgment of the world. Fortunately, Lin Sun had always adhered to his own good and evil, right and wrong, so his state of mind was not really shaken by these tribulations. When he finally passed this tribulation, his Taoist heart became more clear and firm. The seventh tribulation was called the Great Confucian Tribulation, which came from the Confucian era. From the beginning of the tribulation, the power of the tribulation changed completely. Lin Sun's Taoist heart, cultivation, soul, and the power of the Great Way all began to suffer destructive blows. Because the tribulation was like the struggle of the Great Way. You regarded me as a devil, and I regarded you as a traitor. Such a conflict was completely incompatible with each other. It had nothing to do with hatred, but the level of the Great Way. It was also in this tribulation that Lin Sun felt the real crisis. Chapter 31:43. Tribulation clouds billowed in the sky. When the dazzling thunderbolts fell, they turned into countless dazzling characters of the Great Way. These characters had different shapes and were imprinted with different auras. They were arranged in the void and turned into lines of words that were as sharp as swords. They were beautiful and unfathomable. Their power could be said to be boundlessly terrifying. Words were the carrier of civilization, and scriptures were scriptures that described the profundities of the grand Tao of the heavens and the earth. During the righteous Confucian tribulation, every single word was simply like a calamity capable of obliterating the world, and its lethality far exceeded imagination. Lin Sun's figure was often injured in the battle. His cultivation was seriously threatened, and he was in a dangerous situation. When he finally passed the tribulation, Lin Sun's body was broken and his spirit was damaged. He was extremely miserable, but his eyes were incomparably bright. From then on, it allowed his cultivation to undergo a whole new transformation. The eighth tribulation is called the Solitary Buddha tribulation. It comes from the Buddha era. The ninth tribulation is called the Three Pure Tao tribulation. It comes from the Tao era. As long as I pass it, I can successfully prove my Tao and have the foundation to transcend the long river of time. Feeling the earth-shaking changes in his body, Lin Sun took a deep breath and was full of expectations. While Lin Sun was passing the tribulation, days passed in the outside world. Wu Yang, Xing Jia, and the other old monsters who had been waiting on Silent Night Ridge were losing their patience. They couldn't wait any longer. There's only one day left before the major divine clan's attack. Maybe the enemy army is already on their way. A worried look appeared on Xing Jia's face. It had been 9 days since the major divine clans declared war. Today, the divine city of fortune was cold and desolate. The air was filled with an oppressive atmosphere. Little guy, why don't you pay a visit to your father? Someone looked at Lin Fan and suggested. No. Before Lin Fan could speak, Wu Yang stopped him. What if Lin Sun's cultivation is disturbed? What's more, this is the divine city of fortune. Don't forget that even an eternal realm expert will be blocked and bombarded by the rule power of the city. And we just wait like this. Someone frowned. Is there any other way? Wu Yang also felt helpless. She didn't expect Lin Sun to be so carefree. He had already declared war on the Hai Sun clan and Jiang clan before coming to Fortune Divine City, but he was still able to concentrate on cultivating in seclusion under such circumstances. His composure was admirable. Seniors, my father will definitely accept the challenge. Lin Fan couldn't help but say. His handsome face was filled with determination. Everyone couldn't help laughing. Of course, they knew that Lin Sun was not afraid of this battle. What they were worried about was that Lin Sun didn't know that apart from the Hai Sun clan and the Jiang clan, there were also eternal realm experts from the other god clans. The old men had analyzed the situation and found out that there were 39 Eternal Realm experts among the hundreds of eras in the ruins of fortune. 11 of them were overseen by Creation Realm cultivators. If one were to calculate carefully, there were at least 100 existences in the enemy army that had come this time, and almost 20 existences in the Creation Realm. Among them, the top forces like the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan each had more than 10 experts in the Transcendent Realm and 4 existences in the Creation Realm. Such an army of Eternal Realm experts could easily wipe out any civilization in the ruins of fortune. Such a lineup was enough to make any Eternal Realm expert restless. If they hadn't known that Lin Sun had single-handedly overturned the Ji clan, Wu Yang and the others probably wouldn't have been able to sit still. Suddenly, the Dark Blood Emperor seemed to sense something. He looked into the distant sky, and his expression changed abruptly. The enemy is here. The old monsters present were all shocked. Didn't they say they would arrive in 10 days? Someone asked subconsciously. This only proves that they can't wait to start the war. Wu Yang calmed down. Looking out from the city, in the depths of the distant starry sky, many figures appeared, and they were approaching this place. There were more than 100 people. Each of them had suppressed their aura to the extreme, so they didn't cause any backlash from the rules of heaven and earth. They were like a silent black cloud, sweeping over from the depths of the universe. Leading them were the Creation Realm experts of the High Sun clan, Gao Yanghuai, and the Jiang clan's Creation Realm expert, Jiang Tao. Behind them were a group of Creation Realm experts, about 16 or 17 of them. Further behind them was a mighty and dense group of Transcendent Realm experts. When they were 10,000 feet away from the Divine City of Fortune, they all stopped in their tracks and stood in the void like gods of the heavens, looking at the Divine City of Fortune from afar. This distance was the safest. Once they got any closer, they would be repelled and bombarded by the power of the Divine City of Fortune. Before the war started, Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao would not force their way forward. The starry sky was silent, but the oppressive atmosphere spread like a landslide and a tsunami in every area of this vast starry sky. Whether it was Lin Fan, Su Bai, or the old monsters like Wu Yang, this was the first time they had seen such a powerful lineup. Nearly 20 Creation Realm experts, hundreds of Transcendent Realm experts. Such an eternal level army could make people feel desperate and helpless no matter where they appeared. In the ruins of fortune, such a force was equivalent to a supreme master. Wu Yang and the others felt unprecedented pressure, and their expressions were as solemn as water. Even Lin Fan and Su Bai could not calm down at this moment. Even if they had confidence in Lin Sun, they still felt unspeakably nervous and worried when facing such a lineup. In the starry sky, after Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others arrived, they immediately began to lay out their plans. Splash, splash, a total of 9 completely different kinds of divine order power turned into a sky curtain and soared into the sky, spreading like waves of tides. With the Divine City of Fortune as the center, the starry sky in all directions was covered by layers of divine order power. Then, Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other Eternal Realm army no longer suppressed their own aura and suddenly released terrifying and monstrous power. Boom! The starry sky shook, and thousands of stars shook. The surging power of the Eternal Realm gathered together and rushed fiercely to the Divine City of Fortune like a stormy wave. Although these powers were all resisted by the power of rules emitted by the Divine City of Fortune, the heavy destructive aura still made Wu Yang and the others shudder. They were just existences in the realm of Transcendent Realm, and there were only more than 20 of them. Not to mention facing such an army of Eternal Realm experts. Even if a Creation Realm expert came, they would not be able to compete. They were even worried about how Lin Sun could resolve such a dilemma alone. It's over. In the Divine City of Fortune, there were still some bold cultivators who had not left. They had planned to watch the battle, but when they saw this scene, their hands and feet were cold and their scalps were numb. Such a lineup was completely beyond their imagination. Everyone no longer had a glimmer of hope for Lin Sun. They were even worried that the divine city of fortune would be broken and they would be affected. For a moment, these people were terrified, annoyed, and regretful. They wanted to slap themselves. Why did they have to be brave and choose to stay? They should have left long ago. Where's Lin's son? Didn't you say that you want to fight with us here? Now that all the clans have arrived, why don't you dare to show yourself? In the starry sky, Gao Yonghuai stood proudly, his eyes looking at the divine city of fortune from afar. His voice was like a thunderclap that surged in the starry sky. At this moment, he was complacent, and his face was filled with disdain and coldness. Lin's son, you probably didn't expect that we would join forces with all the clans in the world to deal with you. That's why you don't dare to show yourself at this moment, right? Jiang Tao laughed. Even a lion uses its full strength to fight a rabbit. Don't think that you can look down on us just because you destroyed the Ji clan. Everyone, do you see that? Lin's son is so scared that he doesn't dare to show himself. How dare you declare war with such courage? What's the difference between this and courting death? One by one, the creation realm existences spoke, and their voices were simply like layer after layer of thunder that rumbled through the starry sky. Lin's son, come out and die. Someone couldn't wait any longer and shouted, come out and die. At that moment, hundreds of existences in the law-defying realm shouted together. Their power, like an overwhelming storm, swept across the entire starry sky, causing the void to roar and the stars suspended in the starry sky to explode one by one. If the divine city of fortune had not been covered by the power of rules, blocking the impact of such invisible power, the city would probably have been shattered in this sound. Terrifying, too terrifying. At this moment, the remaining cultivators in the city were terrified to the point of being paralyzed on the ground and out of their wits. Even the expressions of Wu Yang and the others became ugly, and their brows were full of haze. The enemy was too arrogant and seemed to be confident of victory. But they had to admit that such an army of Eternal Realm experts did indeed have the capital to make anyone despair. Even if they went all out, they might not be able to hold on for a moment. How can we fight this battle? The hearts of these old monsters were so heavy that they couldn't be any heavier. Looking at Lin Fan and Su Bai, they also clenched their hands and looked gloomy. So many existences in the Eternal Realm had joined forces just to deal with their father, master, Lin's son. How shameless. Lin's son, why don't you dare to show yourself? Come out and die. In the starry sky, a creation realm expert with a burly figure like a mountain roared, his aura extremely arrogant. This damned bastard, if it was one-on-one, my father would kill him like killing a chicken. Lin Fan gritted his teeth. Fan, is it worth it to be angry for someone who is about to die? At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. Everyone was shocked and subconsciously looked back. The closed door of the hall slowly opened, and Lin Sun's tall figure walked out of it. There will be more updates at night. Chapter 3144. Father. Lin Fan looked excited. Su Bai, Wu Yang, and the other old monsters also looked happy. When Lin Sun came out of the closed door training, they seemed to have found their backbone. Their anxious mood, which had been worried about gains and losses, became much more stable. At this time, Wu Yang pointed to the distance and was about to explain something to Lin Sun. Lin Sun smiled and said, I've made all of you worry, but I hope you can stay in the city. I alone am enough to deal with these people. With that, he rose into the air and stepped into the void. Wu Yang and the others looked at each other. How could they let Lin Sun fight alone? They all wanted to follow him, but as soon as their figures swept over, they were suppressed by the power of the rules in the city and could not move forward. When they looked at Lin Sun again, his figure had already swept out of the divine city of fortune. Seniors, I believe that my father will definitely be able to turn the tide. Lin Fan's eyes became firm again. Let's just wait and watch the show. No matter how reluctant they were, they could only watch from afar at this time. There was no other way. With the oppression of the rules, they could not walk out of the city at all. He's out. At the same time, in the vast starry sky, Gao Yonghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other Eternal Realm existences saw Lin Sun and could not help but reveal undisguised killing intent. He dares to stand out at this moment. His courage is not bad. When we kill him later, we can give him a quick death. Someone said leisurely. That depends on whether he's willing to die a quick death. Someone chuckled. Everyone, don't be careless. This child once destroyed the G clan of the Protoss. Although his cultivation is only at the great perfection of the rules realm, he already has the foundation to kill a creation realm. He can't be underestimated. Someone reminded solemnly. What's there to be afraid of? We have 19 mighty figures of creation realm among us. Each of them has risen in countless years of bloody killing. In addition, there are 9 divine orders and hundreds of people who have reached the realm of law-defying. Such a force can sweep the world. How can we not take down Lin's son? Someone laughed disapprovingly. This also caused a lot of echoing laughter. In short, they clearly knew that Lin Sun's combat power was heaven-defying, but they were full of absolute confidence in the power they possessed. Lin Sun's figure stopped in front of the Fortune Divine City. This place was just at the edge of the Fortune Divine City's territory. When they saw this scene, they burst into laughter again. They seemed to think that Lin Sun's action was a cowardly one, and it was very likely that he was ready to escape into the Divine City of Fortune if the situation went south. Lin Sun, however, looked calm and composed. Only his eyes were deep and cold. He swept his gaze across the audience and suddenly shook his head. Although there are quite a few people who have come to die, most of them are repulsive trash who can't even withstand a single blow. To think that I prepared for so long, but it's all for naught. Lin Sun's voice was very light, but like a clap of thunder, it exploded in everyone's ears in an instant. Everyone was stunned and didn't want to believe that Lin Sun dared to laugh at such a horrible lineup. Is this guy crazy? All the cultivators in Fortune Divine City had the same thought, and all of them were stunned. Lin Fan and Su Bai only felt their blood boiling and their hearts surging. Lin Sun's arrogant attitude at this moment made them admire him from the bottom of their hearts. As for the old monsters like Wu Yang, their expressions became strange, and their hearts were in turmoil. The world was so big, but who dared to be like Lin Sun and despise these powerful figures who had already stood on the Eternal Great Way? You're courting death. Arrogant. Ha ha ha. He's a man who's about to die. How dare he think of us as repulsive trash? I haven't heard such a joke for a long time since I attained the Eternal Way. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others all sneered. Many people scolded, but more people stared coldly at Lin Sun as if he was an ant that was about to be crushed to death. He's going to die anyway, so it's fine to let him say a few more words before he dies. A woman covered her mouth and chuckled. Lin Sun, this is the ruins of Fortune. Not only are we here, but the supreme ruler behind the calamity of the era is also watching in the dark. Do you still think that the divine city of Fortune can protect you? Jiang Tao's eyes were cold. In his opinion, Lin Sun dared to be so arrogant because he relied on his identity as the lord of the divine city of Fortune. But they had long been prepared for this. For example, the 9 divine level orders they brought this time, as well as the power possessed by the eternal realm existences, were more than enough to deal with everything. I only know that those who serve as dogs for the mastermind are destined to not have a good ending. The G clan is the best proof. Lin Sun said indifferently. Kill him. Gao Yanghuai could no longer suppress the killing intent in his heart, and his voice was cold as he gave the order. Boom! The 9 divine level orders that covered the entire starry sky roared at once, and all kinds of dazzling and terrifying torrents of order descended on Lin Sun. This was not to kill Lin Sun, but to cut off his escape route. At the same time, over 100 eternal figures in the transcendent realm formed a formation and attacked with all their might. They were all super experts who had experienced hundreds of battles and killed countless people. No matter how much they despised Lin Sun, they would not hold back at all. They would only use their strongest power to crush Lin Sun into pieces. Boom! How terrifying was the power of hundreds of eternal figures in the law-transgressing realm. Coupled with the fact that they attacked with all their strength, the power was so strong that the starry sky instantly collapsed violently. If it were not for the 9 divine level orders covering it, This attack alone could have completely destroyed the starry sky. The terrifying eternal power converged into a torrent, like a mighty Milky Way, and smashed down from the sky. All kinds of supreme divine powers and densely packed eternal Tao soldiers filled it, dazzling and dazzling. With endless terrifying power of destruction, it rushed towards Lin Sun alone. There was no way to dodge it. In the face of this earth-shattering attack, the entire divine city of fortune fell silent. Everyone's heart tightened as they watched this scene. Many people did not even dare to look, lest they see the scene of Lin Sun being mercilessly killed. Father, Lin Fan wanted to call out, but he could not. His heart seemed to be clenched tightly. But the next moment, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and as if sweeping away dust, the mighty torrent of power, the terrifying blow that was enough to crush the starry sky into ashes, disappeared into thin air. The eternal Tao soldiers were shaken to the point of wailing and trembling as they flew backward. How is this possible? The hundreds of existences in the law-transgressing realm widened their eyes, unable to believe the scene in front of them. Even Gao Yonghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other creation realm experts, who were ready to take advantage of the opportunity to attack, frowned slightly, and their eyes showed shock. Again, Jiang Tao shouted, his voice like thunder. Hundreds of eternal figures in the law-transgressing realm joined forces again, and endless power slammed down, but they still rushed in front of Lin Sun and disappeared like a breeze. Not even a strand of Lin Sun's hair was blown. This time, not only Gao Yonghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others, but also the cultivators in the divine city of fortune, as well as Lin Fan, Su Bai, and Wu Yang, were stunned. Too weak. Lin Sun finally spoke. These three words were like the greatest humiliation in the world, causing the expressions of Gao Yonghuai and the others to become ugly. It must be the rule power of the divine city of fortune that protects him. An old man in a gray robe deduced. Ignorant. Lin Sun laughed, stepped forward, and left the area covered by the rule power of the divine city of fortune. Poof! Then, under the shocked gaze of many, Lin Sun casually pointed out with a finger. The old man in a gray robe, an eternal existence with the great perfection of the law-transgressing realm, was directly blown up by Lin Sun. Countless scarlet blood splattered in the void. From beginning to end, he had no time to dodge or resist. Bastard! Quick, let's attack together and block his escape route. We must not let him escape back to the divine city of fortune. Gao Yonghuai shouted. Kill! In the starry sky, the 9 divine orders boiled and tumbled, and terrifying Tao light fell, turning into layers of power, completely sealing Lin Sun's escape route. At the same time, hundreds of law-transgressing realm existences formed a battle formation and attacked with all their might. As for creation existences like Gao Yonghuai and Jiang Tao, they stood guard in the surroundings, and their auras rumbled as they attacked Lin Sun from afar. In just an instant, the starry sky seemed to have completely collapsed, and it fell into chaos. It was a scene of destruction, turmoil, and doomsday. That scene was too terrifying. In the face of such an attack, Lin Sun said indifferently, Now, I will send all of you on your way. His figure was still reverberating, and his aura was suddenly released. It continued to rise, and his tall figure seemed to become boundlessly tall. Swoosh! He directly leaped up and transformed into a shocking ray of light, piercing into the battle formation formed by the hundreds of law-transgressing realm existences. He did not rely on any magic power, nor did he use any divine ability or Tao technique. He purely relied on his physical body, and he was like a white rainbow piercing through the sky. From afar, Lin Sun's figure was like an extremely sharp divine sword, piercing into the enemy army. Bang! 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 More than a dozen law-transgressing realm existences were hit by Lin Sun's figure. Their sturdy, eternal Tao bodies could not withstand the impact at all, and even their divine souls exploded with a loud bang. Blood sprayed all over the sky. As Lin Sun's figure charged forward, No matter what kind of peerless magic powers or eternal Tao soldiers they were unable to break through the defensive power around him. Under such circumstances, the power that Lin Sun released spread out, creating a bloody scene along the way. The law-transgressing realm existences could not dodge in time and were directly crushed, like bloody bubbles exploding in the void. They were so fragile, so vulnerable. When Lin Sun's figure returned, the hundreds of law-transgressing realm existences were already scattered by the impact, and only a few more than 30 people were left. The rest had been crushed into blood, their bodies and souls destroyed, and they died violently. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other creation existences were so shocked that they revealed looks of horror. Weiyang and the others, as well as Lin Fan and Su Bai, also widened their eyes, astonishment and shock written all over their faces. As for those cultivators in Divine Creation City, all of them were stunned on the spot, and they were completely stunned. At that moment, heaven and earth trembled, and all things fell silent. Only Lin Sun's figure was left standing proudly in the void, untainted by even a speck of dust, like a god descending to the world. Chapter 31:45. What was a horizontal push? What Lin Sun was showing now was the power of a horizontal push. When hundreds of eternal existences in the law-defying realm formed a battle formation, it was like an iron curtain covering the sky. However, more than half of them were wiped out by Lin Sun's charge. Dozens of them were smashed in the air, as fragile as bubbles. Broken limbs, blood, and scales were scattered all over the sky. Some of them were further away and were only swept by the power of Lin Sun, tearing through the sky. However, half of their bodies were smashed into pieces as if they had been slashed by a heavenly sword. They howled and retreated in panic, their faces full of fear. Just the power of an eternal Tao body is so terrifying. These existences in the law-defying realm were all existences who had dominated an era of civilization. With their sharp eyes, they could easily tell that Lin Sun had not used any spells or magical powers. He had only displayed the power of his physical body. Because of this, they were even more afraid. In the end, only 30 or so people in the law-defying realm survived, but they were all pale with fear. Compared to the terror and fear of the law-defying figures, the creature-level existences were in disbelief. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other 19 creation realm existences have been watching from afar, bombarding Lin Sun from a distance. However, all their attacks had failed to stop Lin Sun's killing. Too fast. When they came to their senses, they saw the bloody scenes of death spread across the starry sky. It was so stimulating that their hearts trembled, unable to accept it. In fact, all the experts who saw this scene were filled with shock. The strength Lin Sun had shown was too powerful and incredible. It was far beyond their understanding of the law-defying realm. No matter how heaven-defying a law-defying expert was, it was already rare for him to be able to suppress 7 or 8 people of the same level. However, Lin Sun had killed his peers as easily as slaughtering chickens and dogs. He had even killed dozens of existences in the law-defying realm with a single collision. They did not even dare to imagine it. Father is so strong. Lin Fan felt a little dizzy and was tongue-tied. Master, Subai was so shocked that he could not speak. Weiyang, Xingjia, Long Xiang, and the other old monsters also widened their eyes in shock. They looked at the bloody scene in the distance in disbelief. Looking at Lin Sun's godlike figure, their hearts surged. Strong, too strong. The battle had just begun, but Lin Sun had already shown his invincible power. As for the cultivators in the Fortune Divine City, their minds were completely blank, and they were dumbstruck. Previously, the Haisun clan and the Jiang clan had led the eternal realm existences of the major clans in the world. They had come in a mighty manner, and their divine might had filled the starry sky, causing everyone to feel despair and helplessness. But now, everything was being overturned. Something's wrong. Suddenly, the exclamation of a creation realm existence resounded in the starry sky. This fellow seems to have already attained the creation realm. What? Gao Yonghui, Jiang Tao, and the others stiffened, and they carefully sized up Lin Sun. Instantly, they noticed that the aura suffused out of Lin Sun's body was extremely obscure and deep like an abyss, and they were actually unable to see through it. You have good eyesight. Lin Sun spoke indifferently. As he spoke, his aura suddenly changed, and it actually rose explosively to an inconceivable state, causing the starry sky to tremble and wail. In the sky, the power of the 9 divine steps suffered a huge impact and began to churn violently. Damn it! How could this be? Is it the opportunity to attain Tao validation and break through long before the calamity of an era arrives? Moreover, this is the ruins of creation. The eternal Tao tribulation triggered when one attains Tao validation, and the creation realm will definitely be sensed by us. But why didn't there even a trace of it before? At this instant, the expressions of Gao Yonghui, Jiang Tao, and the other creation realm existences completely changed. The movement caused by an eternal realm existence's Tao validation and tribulation transcendence was so huge that it was enough to affect the turbulence of every starry sky territory in the ruins of creation. But before this, none of them had sensed any signs of tribulation transcendence. It had never crossed their minds that an expert in the transcendent realm like Lin Sun had already quietly attained Tao validation and the creation realm. All this had caught them off guard. Looking at the remaining 30 or so eternal realm existences in the transcendent realm, each of their faces was ashen, and their hearts were filled with bitterness and lingering fear. They finally understood. No wonder Lin Sun was so powerful. It turned out that he had attained Tao validation and the creation realm. With such monstrous power, he could naturally easily sweep away the transcendent realm existences like them. And Lin Sun was not someone ordinary creation realm existences could compare to. Back when he was at the great perfection realm of transcendent realm, he could destroy the God Clan's G Clan by himself, kill 3 creation realm existences, and annihilate a group of transcendent realm experts. Not to mention now, creation realm. At this moment, Wu Yang and the others also came to a realization. The shock in their hearts was simply indescribable. It was only now that they understood why Lin Sun had been in seclusion for the past few days. It was clearly to attain Tao validation and the creation realm. Creation realm. In the ruins of creation, where boundless realm existences did not exist, it was already the most supreme existence. How could they not be shocked by this? In fact, just like Gao Yonghui and the others, they could not imagine how Lin Sun had seized the opportunity to attain Tao validation and tribulation transcendence in the period before the era calamity arrived. And why did it not cause the slightest commotion from beginning to end? This was too surprising and inconceivable. At this moment, Lin Sun raised his head to look at the sky and said, "Right now, what I really need to be afraid of is not you, but the mastermind behind this era calamity. But now it seems that your actions this time did not seem to have received the help of this mastermind." His words were casual, but it made the expressions of Gao Yonghui and the others even more unsightly. The supreme ruler is like the great way, omnipresent. How can you slander him? Jiang Tao shouted. Is that so? I'd like to see if the supreme ruler you speak of will appear after I slaughter you all. Lin Sun walked forward with his hands behind his back, his eyes blazing like torches. The terrifying creation realm pressure suddenly spread out. Attack together! Gao Yonghui roared angrily. Once they retreated today, the God Clan behind them would follow in the footsteps of the G Clan. This was something that none of them could accept. Only by killing Lin Sun here and now could they get rid of this great trouble once and for all. Kill! Jiang Tao and the other creation realm existences all moved out. Each of their bodies was steaming with terrifying power as they attacked Lin Sun together. Boom! The sky was dark and the earth was dark, collapsing like chaos. The power grasped by the creation realm was naturally far from what the exceeding rules realm could compare with. They could easily release all kinds of rule power, collapse the sky, and destroy a world. They were incomparably powerful. These 19 creation realm existences were all the creation realm powerhouses of the various god clans in the ruins of fate. Each of them had experienced countless ups and downs before rising, and the divine powers and means they had mastered could be said to be the best in the world. At this moment, when they attacked together, it was really no different from a group of supreme rulers in the starry sky. In comparison, the exceeding rules realm existences were completely dim and insignificant. Apart from that, the 9 divine steps were also controlled by these creation realm existences, and they attacked Lin Sun together. Boom! The mighty power of the creation realm spread out. Some turned into flaming divine swords that were as brilliant as the sun. Some turned into ancient divine mountains that supported a vast world. Some turned into divine birds with wings that could tear apart the 9 heavens. And some, apart from these supreme divine powers, there were also eternal Tao weapons with terrifying power, whips, hammers, rulers, swords, seals, pagodas, and so on. Every single treasure glowed brilliantly, and they gave rise to boundless world-shocking phenomena. Under such a siege, it was enough to make any creation realm existence tremble in fear and despair. But in the face of such a siege, Lin Sun's expression remained calm. He stepped forward and stretched out his hand to grab. Boom! A huge hand that seemed to cover the sky appeared out of thin air, as if a chaotic abyss had descended to the world, surging with obscure and mysterious rule power. When this huge hand appeared, an indescribable aura of destruction was released along with it, tearing apart the power of the 9 divine steps in the sky, causing it to collapse like a tide, and the void to collapse and crack like a piece of paper. It gave people the feeling that such a huge hand could disturb the starry sky and crush all the phenomena in the world. When this huge hand slapped down, boom, how terrifying was the torrent of power released by the joint forces of 19 creation realm existences. But at this moment, it was forcefully slapped apart by this palm, causing an endless rain of light to burst out. All kinds of divine powers were destroyed in the explosion, and all kinds of eternal Tao weapons were shaken to the point of wailing and buzzing as they flew backward. A single slap had actually broken the offensive means of 19 creation realm existences. The expressions of Gao Yang Huai and the others changed, and all of them staggered from the impact of the huge hand. Their chi and blood surged, and their expressions were extremely solemn. Too strong. Lin Sun, who had reached the creation realm, was simply a heaven-defying monster that couldn't be measured by common sense. And this slap also caused a layer of goosebumps to arise all over Wu Yang and the others, and they were completely shocked. One person fought against 19 creation realm existences alone, and there was no lack of ruthless figures of the perfection realm among them. But Lin Sun still seemed so powerful and domineering. Kill! The eyes of Gao Yang Huai and the others turned red, and they went all out. They went all out and attacked again without holding back. All of them knew that in the ruins of creation, if even they, the creation realm existences, couldn't destroy Lin Sun, then all the divine clans in the world would definitely be trampled under Lin Sun's feet. This was something none of them could accept. And trying to shake a tree is just a joke. Lin Sun stepped forward in a cold and indifferent voice. Boom, boom, boom. With every step Lin Sun took, the starry sky trembled. An indescribably terrifying power spread from his tall figure, as if a supreme being of all heavens was going out. Those supreme divine powers and eternal Tao weapons that attacked him were all defeated by a wave of his hand, and they couldn't hurt a hair of his at all. On the contrary, under the pressure of his power, those opponents were like small boats that were constantly rocking in stormy waves, and their siege was constantly dispersed. The invincible power made Lin Sun become the most dazzling light on the battlefield, showing the supreme demeanor of overwhelming all others and dominating the starry sky. In contrast, the power of Gao Yang Huai and the other 19 creation realm existences was completely suppressed by Lin Sun. The superior was obvious. Chapter 3146. In the creation realm, One could refine the rules of heaven and earth for his own use. He had the magical power to turn stone into gold, just like the legendary creator. In the river of epics located in the original power of the ruins of fortune, Lin Sun passed the 9 tribulations of Tao in one fell swoop. Not only did he successfully reach the creation realm, but he also had the potential to transcend the changing of eras. The power he mastered was completely different from those in the same realm, and he was no longer comparable to those in the same realm. Under such circumstances, it was completely effortless for him to kill those who exceeded the rules realm, and he was destined to be unstoppable. And now, it was the same in the face of the 19 creation realm. After all, this was already a battle of the same realm. With Lin Sun's cultivation and foundation, he could already kill those in the middle stage of the creation realm when he exceeded the rules realm, let alone now that he was already in the creation realm. Therefore, as soon as the battle began, Lin Sun was already in a strong state. His divine power was vast and overwhelming, and he revealed his unparalleled fighting power. Boom! A pagoda made of white bones came crashing down from the sky. The power of rules emerged around the pagoda, turning into a mountain of corpses, a sea of blood, and a hellish cave, oppressing the void into disorder. Lin Sun just slapped out his palm, and the white bone pagoda flew out with a bang, and many cracks appeared on its surface. At the same time, a sword chi emerged from Lin Sun's body and flashed in the void. Puff! The head of the creation realm, who controlled the white bone pagoda, was chopped off, and blood sprayed high. Fortunately, his spirit dodged in time and was not obliterated. Boom! The power released from Lin Sun's body also defeated the attacks, coming from all directions, and they couldn't hurt him at all. Kill! A black-robed man roared fiercely. As if burning his own cultivation, he turned into a bloody rainbow and made a desperate attack. But the terrifying attack he exerted with all his might didn't even get within 30 meters of Lin Sun's body. It was like hitting an iron wall and instantly turned into powder. And Lin Sun took the opportunity to step forward. Boom! Hundreds of millions of obscure light raindrops interweaved into a formation of rules in front of him, crushing the black-robed man's figure on the spot. Before his body and primordial spirit could disperse, they were swept away by Lin Sun's power. A creation realm existence was so easily suppressed. This scene of death caused Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others to shiver all over. How can he be so powerful? Someone let out a furious roar. From the beginning of the battle to the present, Lin Sun had shown an extremely strong posture. Even if they joined forces, they couldn't suppress him at all. On the contrary, as the battle went on, Lin Sun alone suppressed all their attacks. Who could accept this? It should be known that these creation realm existences had gone through countless years of ups and downs. But now they joined forces but didn't make any progress. Instead, Lin Sun took the opportunity to kill one of them. This was undoubtedly too terrifying. Everyone, we have no way out. Let's fight him to the death. A silver-robed woman said coldly. She controlled a divine-level order with her delicate hand and charged towards Lin Sun. Her power was extremely powerful, and the power that lingered around her could easily crush existences that exceeded the realm of enlightenment. But in front of Lin Sun, she seemed to be unable to bear it. In just an instant, she was easily defeated by Lin Sun and retreated with injuries. If it weren't for the others restraining her, she was bound to be unable to escape. At this moment, Lin Sun was truly too strong. He seemed to be invincible and unstoppable. Not long after, swoosh! Lin Sun's palm and fingers were like blades that cut through the sky. A peerlessly dazzling light flashed, and a creation realm existence's body was cut into 2 at the waist. Even his primordial spirit didn't have time to escape before it died on the spot. And in the following battle, creation realm existences were killed one after another. Blood suffused the starry sky that had collapsed and seemed to be in chaos. Tao sounds rumbled everywhere, and divine radiance swept through. It was like a scene of purgatory where the end of the world was coming. Lin Sun's figure moved about freely. Even powerful existences, like creation realm existences, couldn't stop this level of slaughter at all. Furious roars, screams, scarlet blood and death intertwined, outlining a bloody picture that was enough to shock the ages. In the divine city of fortune, Wu Yang and the others felt cold in their hands and feet. Their Taoist heart trembled, and they all stood there blankly as if they had forgotten to breathe. This was not a battle of one against many. It was clearly a massacre that belonged to Lin Sun alone. Kill! The roar was like thunder, resounding through the starry sky. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others' eyes were bloodshot. They seemed to have gone crazy and were fighting desperately without regard for their lives. But it was still in vain. They couldn't shake Lin Sun at all. On the contrary, their companions around them were dying one by one. All of this stimulated them to the point that their liver and gallbladder were torn apart. It wasn't that they didn't have a trump card in their hands, but even if they used it, it was resolved by Lin Sun in an incomparably strong manner. It didn't play much role at all. In next to no time, only 9 of the 19 creation realm existences remained, and there were even a few amongst them that were heavily injured. Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others hadn't given up yet. The remaining more than 30 existences in the law-exceeding realm were already panic-stricken, and their fighting spirit had collapsed. Let's run away. No one in the ruins of fortune is a match for Lin Sun at all. Let's go. These existences in the law-exceeding realm were panic-stricken and fled frantically. They were the first to collapse. Do you really think I'll let you small fries get away? Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and a series of divine-level orders rose into the sky and blocked the starry sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, the 4 Tao forms appeared and attacked these existences in the law-exceeding realm. Each of the 4 Tao forms was no weaker than Lin Sun himself. When they attacked together, their speed and power were far greater than those in the law-exceeding realm. As a result, screams of terror and curses of anger soon rang out. In just a few blinks of an eye, more than 30 existences in the law-exceeding realm of Eternal Realm were wiped out. None of them were spared. In the face of such a scene, Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others, the remaining creation realm existences who were still resisting, felt a wave of sadness in their hearts. It was over. The situation was hopeless. Previously, they had united all the Eternal Realm existences in the world. When they first arrived, they didn't take Lin Sun seriously at all. They even threatened to ask Lin Sun to come out and accept his death. But now, there was only despair and helplessness left in their hearts. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun would be in the creation realm. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun's combat power had reached such a level. The battle continued. Lin Sun was destined not to hold back. With the 4 Tao forms joining the battle, the enemy's defeat accelerated a lot. Puff, puff, puff. One by one, the creation realm existences died in the starry sky. Before they died, their primordial spirits and bodies were taken away by Lin Sun. All of them ended up in a miserable state. In the end, only Gao Yanghuai was left. His face was covered in blood, and his black hair was disheveled. He roared, "Lin Sun, the calamity of the era is coming. You can't escape death. Just you wait." Boom! Before he finished speaking, Lin Sun had already smashed his body into pieces with a cold palm. At this point, all the Eternal Realm existences who came together to invade the city were wiped out by Lin Sun alone. However, before the people in the creation divine city could recover from the deep shock, suddenly, a terrifying tribulation light appeared out of thin air, with incomparably powerful and far superior power. Like a sword, it came straight at Lin Sun when he was the most relaxed. What's going on? At that moment, countless people were shocked. That ray of tribulation light was extremely obscure and deep, and it carried a strange and ominous aura. As soon as it appeared, this vast expanse of the starry sky suddenly darkened, and the layers of divine rank order energy that covered the starry sky were suppressed and were utterly unable to move. And at the moment when no one could react, the tribulation light instantly crossed the boundless space-time and bombarded Lin Sun. directly tearing his body apart. Lin's son, father, master. At that moment, Wuyong, Lin Fan, and Su Bai all cried out involuntarily, and their expressions changed completely. No one expected that when Lin Sun was invincible and crushed all the eternal realm existences, there would be such a sudden change. But the next moment, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air hundreds of meters away. The tribulation light that had shattered before was just an afterimage left by his fast-moving speed. Yong, Lin Fan, Su Bai, and the others could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. But soon, they all looked at the depths of the starry sky in surprise. At the same time, a dignified look appeared on Lin Sun's face. In the depths of the starry sky, a gray tribulation cloud emerged, full of strange and ominous aura. Although it was silent, it made people shudder. The tribulation light before came from the depths of this gray tribulation cloud. Even Lin Sun felt a chill in his body, as if he was locked by an invisible gaze from a distance, making him uncomfortable all over. Is it the great silence, fatal tribulation? As soon as this thought came to Lin Sun's mind, he saw the tribulation cloud in the depths of the starry sky trembled violently, and then hundreds of invisible and colorless tribulation lights swept out, directly tearing the space-time and rushing toward Lin Sun. Boom! Almost instinctively, Lin Sun operated his cultivation to the extreme to an unprecedented level, and it simply burst out like a boiling furnace. Break! Lin Sun shouted, and hundreds of millions of sword chi branded with the profound meaning of nirvana whistled out, blooming with a boundless light curtain, and collided with the tribulation light. After that, rumbling sounds of collisions that were dense like thunderclaps resounded, and it caused numerous rifts to appear in that expanse of the starry sky, causing it to seem like a shattered canvas. In the end, although Lin Sun blocked the hundreds of tribulation light, he was struck to the point that his blood and chi were in turmoil, his figure staggered, and his expression became gloomy. He felt a familiar aura from the tribulation light, and it was exactly the same as the trace of primordial law contained in the primordial stone statue that he had refined. There was no doubt that the culprit behind the calamity of the era had made a move. Moreover, the culprit didn't borrow the power of others this time, but directly evolved into a great tribulation, appeared in the depths of the starry sky, and targeted him. Today, I will continue to add chapters and ask for monthly votes. Chapter 31:47. In the divine city of fortune, Wu Yang and the others felt their hands and feet go cold. The great desolation calamity. No one had expected that after Lin Sun had just won an unprecedented victory, such a killing tribulation would suddenly come. Which eternal realm didn't know about the power of this calamity? It could be said that the great desolation calamity was the most feared in the eternal realm. During the destruction of civilizations in the past eras, this calamity had killed countless peerless eternal realm existences. Lin Sun, come back! Xing Jia shouted immediately, his voice echoing through the starry sky. This was the divine city of fortune, enough to avoid the great desolation calamity. In the starry sky, Lin Sun shook his head and said, "Don't panic, everyone. I want to see how powerful this calamity is." His eyes were deep, revealing a hint of blazing fighting spirit. A long time ago, he had heard all kinds of rumors about the great desolation calamity. Even supreme existences like the eternal night divine emperor had been severely injured by this calamity. The only thing that puzzled Lin Sun was the relationship between the power of the great desolation calamity and the mastermind. Because according to common sense, if this calamity was completely controlled by the mastermind, it would have been a piece of cake for the mastermind to kill him in the past. There was no need to instruct the Zen sect, the voodoo cult, and the Ninth Heaven's Eternal God clan to attack him. There was also no need for the various divine clans in the ruins of fortune to deal with him. But it didn't make sense to say that the great desolation calamity wasn't controlled by the mastermind, because previously he had clearly felt the aura of the primordial law from the tribulation light. And this was what puzzled Lin Sun the most. This kid, knowing Lin Sun's plan, Wu Yang and the others felt their hearts clench. At this time, he still wanted to compete with the Great Desolation Calamity. One should know that Lin Sun had just reached the creation realm. Without reaching the great perfection of this realm, he was destined to have no chance of stepping into the boundless realm. And it was obvious that Lin Sun insisted on doing this at this moment, as he said, to test the power of the Great Desolation Calamity. This move was too bold, no different from throwing his life away. How could Wu Yang and the others not worry? Lin Bai and Su Bai glanced at each other, feeling somewhat indescribable excitement. Lin Sun's spirit at the moment shocked, and even made them admire him. Perhaps it was only with such boldness that Father, Master, was able to achieve the great Tao he had today. Suddenly, in the gray tribulation cloud in the depths of the starry sky, a long saber condensed by tribulation light suddenly emerged. It flashed in the air and moved across time and space, abruptly chopping at Lin Sun. It was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already within reach. The saber was suffused with a strange and ominous aura, and the blade was gray and hazy, causing one's heart to palpitate. Clang! At this critical moment, the abyssal sword cauldron appeared and blocked the saber that was slashing down. Rays of light burst out and rumbled like thunder. The long saber dispersed, while the abyssal sword cauldron was sent flying. Unexpectedly, the abyssal sword cauldron remained unscathed under the attack of such a terrifying tribulation blade. Wu Yang and the rest were stunned. They didn't know that the abyssal sword cauldron, like Lin Sun, had been destroyed and reshaped during the 9 Tao tribulations in the River of Epics. It was completely different from before. Now, the cauldron was already connected with Lin Sun's heart, and its whole body was engraved with the power of the great Tao law of nirvana. Quantity. Lin Sun recalled the abyssal sword cauldron and stood in the void. Although his expression was solemn, his state of mind had calmed down a lot. Soon, the depths of the gray tribulation cloud tumbled, and tribulation weapons swept out one after another. There were sabers, spears, swords, halberds, ancient seals, pagodas, and so on. All of them were filled with a strange and ominous aura and were extremely powerful. That kind of killing power could easily kill creation realm figures like Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao. Lin Sun didn't dare to be careless and fought with all his strength. The power he released was far from what he had used to kill Gao Yanghuai and the others. Boom, boom, boom. In the starry sky, Lin Sun's figure shone like a god. The abyssal sword cauldron swept across the sky, blocking the tribulation light in front of him and exploding. It was also at this time that Wu Yang and the others finally realized how heaven-defying Lin Sun's extreme combat power was after he stepped into the creation realm. When he killed Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao before, he obviously didn't use his full strength, and it was only now that he really revealed his cultivation. After Lin Sun blocked the last tribulation weapon, suddenly, a voice sounded from the depths of the gray tribulation cloud. Hey! The voice was very old, full of indifference and ruthlessness. It was just a voice, but it was like a thunderbolt that shattered the ages, shaking the starry sky and making it tremble and wail. Wu Yang and the others' eyes went dark, and they only felt that their mind were showing signs of being shocked. They couldn't help but be shocked. They immediately ran their power to protect themselves, Lin Fan, and Su Bai. It should be known that this was the divine city of creation, which was covered by the rules of creation, but the voice could still produce such terrible power. Who wouldn't be shocked? Sure enough, you're a heretic that can't be tolerated in the world. Accompanied by the ancient, indifferent voice, a figure condensed from the depths of the tribulation cloud and walked out step by step. He was shrouded in a ball of golden light and shadow, and countless golden rules circulated around him. He was bright like a sun that tore through the eternal night. Through the light, people could only see a pair of indifferent and cold silver eyes and a layer of armor that seemed to be made of immortal gold covering his body. As soon as he appeared, incomparably terrifying power fluctuations swept across the starry sky like stormy waves, like an ancient divine mountain pressing down. Every expert who saw this scene felt like their liver was torn apart and their minds were shaken. At the same time, rolling tribulation light fell from his bright and dazzling figure, and the layers of divine rules that originally covered the starry sky were now like decorations, completely suppressed. Terrifying, too terrifying, an aura that far exceeds the realm of creation. Is he the mastermind behind the calamity of the era? Everyone was shocked. Wu Yang, Xing Jia, Long Xiang, and the other old monsters' eyes burst with light. Their skin tightened to the extreme, and their cultivations surged wildly as they desperately resisted this power. And the cultivators who had been distributed in the divine city of creation all collapsed to the ground at this moment, and their vitality faded away like flowing water. His mind had actually been forcefully shattered by that terrifying might, causing him to die. The golden figure stood in the void like a supreme ruler. He didn't even make a move, but the power alone was enough to prove how terrifying his power was. Hand over the ultimacy of nirvana in you and abolish your cultivation, and I can spare your life on behalf of his lord. The golden figure spoke in an ancient, indifferent, and superior tone, as if he was giving alms. The voice resounded through the universe, oppressive and oppressive. At this time, Lin Sun's expression was unusually solemn. Although he could resist the poison released by the opponent, although he could resist the impact of the pressure released by the golden figure, he felt an unprecedented pressure that made every inch of his skin feel as if it was being torn apart. But he still keenly captured some words from the other's words. His lord, you're not the mastermind behind the calamity of the era? Lin Sun frowned. The other party didn't make a move immediately, so he wouldn't act rashly at this moment. It would be better if he could figure out the other party's background. A creature that walked out of the great silence, lifeless calamity, was incredible in itself. Mastermind behind the scenes? The golden figure was obviously displeased with this title. My lord wields the power to topple an era. How can you slander him? Ignorance is not a crime. I won't argue with you this time. It seemed to be acknowledging Lin's son, but the words were filled with the arrogance of a superior, as if he was an ant on the ground. So you're just serving the mastermind behind the scenes. Lin Sun sighed softly, a little disappointed. He originally thought that the mastermind behind the scenes had shown his power, but now it seemed that this wasn't the case. The golden figure kept calling him Lord, so how could it be the mastermind behind the scenes? It's the dream of any eternal being to serve the Lord. The golden figure said, looking at Lin Sun with a hint of appreciation in his tone, "You're very good. You can resist the killing power of the great silence calamity I borrowed, and you have the profound meaning of nirvana. If you're willing to surrender, you're destined to become a destiny apostle like me in the future." Lin Sun's eyes were filled with surprise. It turned out that this guy borrowed part of the power of the great silence calamity, and he called himself a destiny apostle. Did it mean that all the characters who serve the mastermind behind the scenes could be called destiny apostles? Destiny? How arrogant. At this moment, Lin Sun was a little excited in his heart. He realized that if he could capture the golden figure today, he might be able to force out information about the mastermind behind the scenes. It was very likely that the identity of the mastermind behind the scenes would be revealed. Seeing that Lin Sun was silent, the golden figure in the distance said in a proud tone, "Young man, you're lucky to be recognized by me. Now kneel down, offer the profound meaning of nirvana, and swear loyalty to me. I'll give you supreme glory." He looked down on Lin Sun and asked him to kneel down and beg for mercy, as if it was a gift. Lin Sun couldn't help but sneer. "Who do you think you are? You're just a dog for the mastermind behind the scenes. How dare you ask me to kneel down?" Huh? The golden figure was slightly angry. He just snorted slightly, but the whole starry sky was shaking. The endless void burst like glass fragments, and startling space-time cracks appeared. Just his voice is so terrifying. If he really makes a move, I'm afraid this starry sky won't be able to withstand a blow. This self-proclaimed mandate envoy, just what kind of terrifying cultivation does he have? Wu Yang and the others were all shocked, and their faces changed. The creation realm was already the supreme existence in the ruins of fate. Although the boundless realm had always existed, it was destined to be impossible to see it in the ruins of fate. Yet now, the golden figure that walked out from the great silence lifespan tribulation was clearly far from something in existence that the creation realm could compare to, and it caused others to be unable to imagine exactly how formidable his cultivation was. More updates for you. Chapter 3148. In the previous eras, there were also heretics like you who thought that they had embarked on the path of defying the heavens. They didn't know how to respect others and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They always thought that their path could break and rewrite everything. But in our eyes, they were just ignorant and pitiful worms. There is a trace of coldness in the golden figure's indifferent eyes. If I want, I can overturn the sea, sink the earth, change the mountains and rivers, and turn the entire starry sky into scorched earth with a thought. And if you kneel down and surrender, you can also have the same power as me in the future. You can be fearless of the great silence, fateless doom, and surpass the eternal realm in the world. At the end of his words, there was a touch of pride and incomparable temptation in his voice. At this moment, if it were Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao who had been trapped in the ruins of creation for countless years, they might have been tempted long ago. After all, for them, the great silence fateless doom was like the shadow of death that could take away their lives at any time. Who didn't want to be completely free from it? But Lin Sun just sneered. What destined messenger? It seems that you are used to being a dog. Let me guess, did you also rely on kneeling down and surrendering in exchange for the qualification to be a dog? The golden figure was furious, and his aura surged. Two divine lights shot out from his silver pupils, like two heavenly swords that tore the void apart. It seems that I guessed right. So, you're so angry. Lin Sun laughed. He even suspected that the golden figure opposite him was originally an eternal realm existence in an era. The reason why he could become the destined messenger and serve the behind-the-scenes manipulator was that his knees were too weak and he couldn't withstand the temptation of being a dog. You have a sharp tongue and don't know what's good for you. I can't let you live. The golden figure was completely enraged and suddenly stretched out his hand. Clang! A spear condensed by the light of catastrophe fell into his palm. Die! The golden figure waved the light of catastrophe spear and attacked Lin Sun. At that moment, it was like a sun that could destroy the world moving horizontally, releasing unimaginable power. Oh no! Wu Yang and the others felt a stinging pain in their eyes, and their hearts trembled. This attack was too terrifying. It could easily kill the existence of the creator realm, and people like them who had transcended the matrix realm suffered a terrible impact just looking at it from a distance. Clang! Billions of obscure light rain appeared out of thin air as the profound sword cauldron rose into the air and blocked the attack of the calamity light spear. Lin Sun's figure shook violently, and he was almost shaken back. This caused his eyes to narrow, but instead of being shocked, he was delighted. When they truly fought, even though the other party's strength far surpassed a creation realm figure like Gao Yanghuai, it was not impossible to resist. Moreover, the spear condensed from the power of great silence fateless doom was far less taboo and terrifying than Lin Sun had imagined. At the very least, the profound sword cauldron, which was branded with the Nirvana laws, was enough to fight it head-on. Die! The golden figure attacked again. At this moment, its entire body was surging with calamity light. The golden radiance was blazing, and its terrifying might was endless. It stretched across the sky, and a calamity light spear swept out, shattering the nearby starry skies. It was ridiculously powerful. Wu Yang and the others were all shocked. He felt that under this attack, even if there were 10 of him, he would still be torn to pieces. Many people's hearts tightened. At this time, no matter how much confidence they had in Lin Sun, they could only hope that he would escape back to the Fortune Divine City at the first sign of trouble. But to everyone's surprise, clang! The golden figure's overbearing attack was once again blocked by Lin Sun. The terrifying collision between the two spread out, and the starry skies could no longer bear it. It collapsed into chaos, and scenes of destruction were everywhere. This, Wu Yang and the others were dizzy. Lin Sun's tyrannical strength had repeatedly broken their understanding. Just like at this moment, the golden figure's attack was so despairing, but it was still blocked by Lin Sun. Didn't this mean that even the self-proclaimed Destiny's emissary couldn't do anything to him? The golden figure realized that something was wrong, and his face sank. Die! He let out a loud roar. Layers of calamity light surged around his body, wildly released, and turned into a torrent of calamity light. Even his spear was burning with countless layers of calamity light. At the same time, chains appeared out of thin air, wrapping around the spear, and the aura it exuded became increasingly strange and ominous. It gave people the feeling that fighting against it was like fighting against the great silence, fateless doom. Boom! The surrounding void cracked, and the calamity light spear shot out with a loud bang. At the same time, Lin Sun no longer hesitated and took the initiative to attack. The profound sword cauldron set off endless obscure light rain. Driven by Lin Sun, it collided with the calamity light spear. It had to be said that the calamity power of the spear was too strange and terrifying. It could penetrate the 9 serenities and crush the starry skies. The majestic calamity light surged on it. It slowly and firmly pressed towards Lin Sun inch by inch, making a fierce collision sound with the profound sword cauldron. Countless rules of light rain and torrents of destruction bloomed from the place where the two collided. Wu Yang and the others had no doubt that if they stepped forward, they would turn into ashes in an instant. Seeing that the golden figure obviously had the advantage, with a clang, a Taoist sword swept out of the profound sword cauldron and slashed out at an incredible speed. This sudden turn of events caused the golden figure to instinctively block the attack. With a bang, his figure was directly knocked back. But to Lin Sun's surprise, the terrible sword intent couldn't break the golden armor covering the other party. There is no doubt that this was a supreme treasure with an extremely amazing defensive power. You, an early-stage creator, can actually shake me? The golden figure seemed to be in disbelief and also seemed to be angry. After letting out a loud shout, he waved the calamity light spear and attacked again. His aura became more and more terrifying, like the incarnation of the great silence, fateless calamity. Calamity light intertwined all over his body, and his power skyrocketed compared to before. Lin Sun, come back quickly. Wu Yang couldn't help but let out a hurried voice at this moment. The golden figure's power had reached an unimaginable level. If they fought with him head-on, it was very likely that they would be annihilated. The wisest choice was to retreat to the Fortune Divine City and fight with the power of the laws of the Fortune Divine City. But at this moment, Lin Sun let out a long laugh. There's no need to hide to deal with this dog. After that, the 4 great Tao bodies flew out together, each holding an eternal Tao weapon. Together with Lin Sun's original body, they charged towards the golden figure. His original body was already so powerful, let alone now that there were 4 great Tao avatars that were not weaker than his original body joining in. Then Lin Sun's figure shot out like 5 divine rainbows, straight into the 9 heavens, breaking through the endless calamity light, and his power spanned across the sky. Although the golden figure's power skyrocketed, when he was besieged like this, his figure suddenly stiffened, and his face sank again. He didn't seem to expect that Lin Sun's true combat strength would be so tyrannical. It was obviously beyond his expectations. Kill. But the golden figure had no intention of retreating. Instead, he became stronger and stronger. A calamity light spear pointed to the sky and the earth, releasing a supreme torrent of destruction. Rumble, rumble, the two fought fiercely, and in a flash, they had exchanged hundreds of blows. They fought until the universe was upside down and the void collapsed. Endless calamity light and Tao light were everywhere. The golden figure might be able to suppress Lin Sun's original body, but when the 4 great Tao bodies attacked together with Lin Sun's original body, They forcibly turned the situation around and fought the golden figure to a standstill. Bang! 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 A series of explosions rang out. The golden figure's calamity light spear was also extremely powerful. It was formed by a part of the power of great silence, fateless calamity. The eternal Tao weapons controlled by Lin Sun's 4 great Tao bodies were directly shattered in the battle. But before the golden figure could be happy, another eternal Tao weapon appeared in the hands of each of the 4 figures. I'd like to see how many eternal Tao weapons you have in your hands that could be destroyed. The golden figure was furious. Lin Sun's difficulty was beyond his expectation, and it also made him feel a little embarrassed. As the destined messenger, it was the first time he had encountered such a tricky heretic. In the past eras, he didn't even need to do anything to those heretics he targeted. He could easily kill them with the power of great silence, fateless calamity. But obviously, Lin Sun was different from those heretics before. He had mastered the profound meaning of nirvana and had the foundation to fight against great silence, fateless calamity. In addition, his cultivation was so strong that it was against the heavens, so he couldn't be taken down in a short time. This made the golden figure unable to bear it at all. Boom! The golden figure attacked angrily. The calamity clouds in the depths of the starry sky were tumbling violently. Guided by his power, they dropped strange and unpredictable calamity lights. At this moment, Lin Sun felt great pressure and danger, especially the eternal Tao weapons in the hands of the 4 great Tao bodies. They were almost shattered every moment. If he hadn't collected enough eternal Tao weapons over the years, he wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Kill! The golden figure obviously intended to kill Lin Sun in one go. The power of the battle became stronger and stronger, and his silver eyes were burning with raging anger. Obviously, he had been completely enraged. I can't go on like this. Lin Sun took a deep breath and suddenly displayed the time blade. He turned into a light shadow and merged into the profound sword cauldron. Boom! But when the profound sword cauldron collided with the opponent's calamity light spear again, the scene Lin Sun expected did not appear. The power of great silence, fateless calamity, was completely unafraid of the erosion of the time blade. This was the first time Lin Sun had encountered such a situation. After that, he suddenly gritted his teeth and utilized the Door of Exile. Suddenly, a space-time crack appeared across the sky, and the 1,000-foot-long space-time portal covered the golden figure. Open for me. The golden figure's eyes were cold. With a loud shout, the calamity light spear suddenly twisted forward. Boom! With the eruption of the calamity light, the Door of Exile, with a range of thousands of feet, suffered terrible destruction. In a few breaths, it collapsed. Lin Sun's face finally changed. The Door of Exile, which had always been successful in the past, was broken at this moment. Heretic, what other means do you have? Just use them. In the cold and indifferent voice, the golden figure moved again. He was so powerful that it made people desperate. Chapter 31:49. The continuous use of the Blade of Time and the Gate of Exile consumed a lot of Lin Sun's cultivation. When the golden figure came with terrible power, Lin Sun was shaken by only one blow, and his whole body was smashed out. Puff! Lin Sun coughed up blood, his face pale. However, in the process, the 4 Taoist bodies restrained the golden figure, which gave Lin Sun a chance to breathe. Divine elixirs emerged one by one and were swallowed by Lin Sun. These divine elixirs were all rare treasures collected by the major clans. They were regarded as trophies and life-saving treasures for Lin Sun. But now, these divine elixirs came in handy. Boom! The divine light roared, and Lin Sun's consumed cultivation recovered rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Without hesitation, he rushed at the golden figure again. Humph! The golden figure looked gloomy. He waved the spear of tribulation light, broke the siege of the 4 Taoist bodies, and stabbed at Lin Sun again. Incomparably powerful. How could he not know that it was futile to kill those doppelgangers? Only by destroying Lin Sun himself could he really kill Lin Sun. Boom! the battle became more and more fierce. Even if Lin Sun attacked with all his strength, he could only tie with the golden figure. The reason was that the combat strength of this golden figure had clearly exceeded the scope of the creation realm a long time ago, and the energy of the light of tribulation he possessed came from the grand silence, lifeless tribulation. It was extremely mysterious and ominous, and it could easily crush eternal Tao soldiers. It could be said that the real threat to Lin Sun in the battle was the power of the great silence fatal disaster borrowed by the golden figure. Because of this, Lin Sun was constantly injured in the following battle. He coughed up blood repeatedly, and his face became extremely pale. Seeing this, Wu Yang and the others were extremely nervous and worried. The battle was too dangerous, just like a struggle between life and death. They were afraid that Lin Sun would encounter an accident in the next moment. However, to everyone's surprise, as time went by, Lin Sun actually withstood the heavy blows. When the eternal Tao soldiers were broken, he would sacrifice new ones. When he was injured by the golden figure, he would directly refine the divine elixirs to repair himself. From beginning to end, Lin Sun seemed to be extremely tenacious. This caused the golden figure to be both anxious and furious, and he was unable to maintain his composure. Ever since he became a Heaven's Mandate envoy, he had never encountered such a difficult opponent. Not only was his combat strength heaven-defying, but he also had countless life-saving trump cards. Kill! The golden figure roared angrily, and his aura shook the void around him. There were torrents of tribulation light everywhere, as if he was the master of heaven's punishment. This attack was once again resisted by Lin Sun. No one noticed that when Lin Sun blocked the blow, there was a glimmer of light in the depths of his eyes. As expected, the borrowed power is only borrowed in the end. It can't be maintained for long. Lin Sun noticed that although the power of the golden figure was still as strong as before, the power of tribulation light it released was obviously weaker than before. This was the reason why Lin refused to retreat before. It was all for a protracted battle, to see who could outlast the other. Kill! The golden figure was obviously anxious. He seemed to have realized that if this continued, the situation would only get worse for him. Therefore, from this moment onwards, attacking was no different from risking his life. Boom! The tribulation light was vast and mighty, and the spear crushed the void. The desperate action of the golden figure caused a great impact on Lin Sun. More and more injuries appeared on his body, which could hardly keep up with the speed of recovery. Looking from a distance, his clothes were stained with blood, and his body was covered with scars, which was shocking. But Lin Sun's eyes were getting brighter and brighter, and his fighting intent was getting stronger and stronger. Because the power of the great silence fatality borrowed by the golden figure was also being consumed rapidly. Kill! Lin Sun shouted, not giving in at all. Although he was injured, he still had a domineering momentum. After a while, Lin Sun suddenly shouted, sword! Boom! At that moment, the world lost its color, the sun and the moon lost their light, and thousands of sword lights gathered together and converged into a dazzling sword light of 3 meters long. The sword light seemed to be transformed by a galaxy, in which there were countless stars and silver lights. Even if they were thousands of miles away, everyone could feel the brilliance and horror of the sword light. This was a sword condensed by the profound meaning of nirvana. Damn it! At the moment when the sword appeared, the golden figure's face changed greatly. He let out a roar and stabbed the spear of tribulation light in his hand. Bang! An amazing scene appeared. The sword light of 3 meters long chopped down in a domineering manner, crushing the spear of tribulation light inch by inch like a hot knife through butter. The golden silhouette wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The sword light shot out like a dragon, instantly traversing thousands of feet in the void. The sword tore open a straight sword mark on the golden silhouette's golden armor, and even his physical body was split in half from the top of his head. Just one sword. The golden figure who came out of the great silence fatality tribulation and claimed to be the messenger of destiny was split in half by one sword. This scene was so shocking that Wu Yang and others who were so nervous about Lin Sun that their hearts were hanging in their throats, were stunned at once. What a terrible sword! But before they could be happy, boom, turbulence surged in the starry sky. The golden figure's soul actually managed to escape from the destructive sword strike. Bastard, do you really think you can exhaust my strength like this? Don't even think about it. The spirit of the golden figure roared as he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed. Bang! The tribulation cloud in the depths of the starry sky suddenly roiled and transformed into a mysterious vortex. At the same time, the outline of a Tao bell suffused within the chaotic chi surged into appearance from within the tribulation cloud vortex. At this instant, time and space seemed to have stopped. The starry sky that had collapsed a long time ago showed signs of being deathly still, and it seemed as if it was forcefully confined by a shapeless pressure. The might of this Tao bell was too terrifying. It was like the embodiment of a supreme taboo, and it hadn't even truly appeared in the world. Yet the divine city of creation had already suffered an extremely great impact and started to shake violently. On the other hand, Wu Yang and the others who were within the city only had a single feeling. The sky is about to collapse. Everything will be destroyed by this Tao bell. It was a force that caused others to be unable to resist, and it made others feel as if they were sinking into despair. It was terrifying to an unimaginable extent. On the other hand, Lin Sun's expression changed abruptly at this moment, while coldness couldn't be restrained surged into his heart. A strand of lethal aura of danger was like a sharp blade, and it caused his entire body to tense up. The primordial bell, that ominous treasure that even the eternal night divine emperor had once suffered misfortune. Lin Sun had never imagined that he would encounter this treasure at this moment, and when he intended to dodge, the strength in his entire body actually seemed as if it had been restrained, causing him to be unable to move in the slightest. His expression instantly turned grim. Chaotic chi seethed within the tribulation cloud and descended into the world. The Tao bell suddenly pressed down, causing this expanse of the starry sky to instantly seem like a bubble and fall into violent spatial turbulence. The lofty and ancient divine city of creation trembled violently as if it was unable to endure this burden, and it seemed as if it would collapse and be destroyed at any moment. That scene seemed no different than the true destruction of a world. Not to mention Lin Sun. Even a boundless realm existence would probably turn their hopes into ashes and fall into complete despair. But right at this moment, a jet black light suddenly flashed out from the sky above the divine city of creation like a bolt of lightning, and it flashed through the obstruction of space at an inconceivable speed. It tore through the layer upon layer of chaotic chi and charged into the tribulation cloud vortex. Clang! The jet black light struck fiercely onto the primordial bell like a bolt of lightning, and a terrifying force that completely exceeded the understanding of the world erupted from the collision. After that, the entire ruins of creation suddenly trembled, and the various epochs that were distributed throughout the ruins of creation suffered the impact. The heavens and the earth shook, and countless living beings within those epochs were alarmed by this and terrified to the point their souls almost left their bodies. In the starry sky, Lin Sun's vision went black as well. He was struck flying by the terrifying force created by the collision, and his body suffered a heavy injury and was extremely damaged. However, to Lin Sun's pleasant surprise, the energy of the primordial bell that confined him had vanished. When he looked up into the sky once more, Lin Sun saw an inconceivable scene. The primordial bell that possessed the might to obliterate the world was actually forcefully obstructed by that mysterious jet black light, and it was unable to truly flash out from the tribulation cloud vortex. The two of them collided intensely, and even the terrifying fluctuations of energy that erupted from them were forcefully blocked within the tribulation cloud vortex, and merely a small portion of it had effused out. However, that small portion of the aura of destruction had crushed this expanse of space, and it shook the entire ruins of creation to the point of shaking violently. It's the river diagram. Lin Sun's heart trembled as he recognized the jet black light that was like a bolt of lightning. It was the river diagram that had resided in the sky above Creation City for countless years, a precious treasure left behind by Chun-Shi. Bang! Rumbling that seemed as if the heavens and the earth were collapsing resounded incessantly. It wasn't long before the primordial bell rumbled, and then it actually vanished from the depths of the tribulation cloud. No, this is impossible. How can my master's Tao treasure possibly be resisted? The golden figure that merely had his soul core left roared with shock and rage, while his eyes almost split apart from rage, and he was unable to accept all of this. This was too inconceivable. As an emissary of the heavens, he was very clearly aware of how formidable the primordial bell was, and it was capable of annihilating a figure like him with ease. Yet now, it had been obstructed. How could he accept all of this? Bang! Along with the disappearance of the primordial bell that was suffused with the aura of chaos, the tribulation cloud vortex that roiled violently, without end, actually rumbled and exploded into pieces at this moment. In an instant, the energy of the grand, silence lifespan tribulation had completely dispersed from the collapsed and destroyed starry sky. At the same time, the river diagram transformed into a jet black light that flashed lightly, and then it returned to the gray and hazy sky above Creation City before vanishing. At this instant, the golden figure seemed to have realized something, and he seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning. "No, don't abandon me, don't." Along with his voice resounding, the golden figure transformed into a ray of light that flashed desperately towards the depths of the starry sky. However, the gray and hazy tribulation cloud had dispersed a long time ago, and it caused the golden figure to completely lose the path to return. For a time, he seemed as if he'd been abandoned, and his entire body collapsed as he cried out in a hoarse voice, "Master, why did you abandon me? Why?" His voice revealed terror, helplessness, and unwillingness as it resounded in all directions. It seemed as if being unable to return along the same path was the cruelest punishment in the world for the golden figure. At this moment, Lin Sun's cold gaze was like a bolt of lightning as he charged explosively towards the golden figure. I'll continue to update tonight. Chapter 3150. Because of the impact he'd suffered earlier, Lin Sun's injuries were extremely severe. His body was damaged, and his entire body was drenched in blood. But compared to these injuries, capturing the golden figure's soul was undoubtedly more important. Swoosh! His figure teleported, and the abyssal sword cauldron soared through the sky. To Lin Sun's surprise, the golden figure's soul seemed to have completely given up, and it didn't have the slightest thought of resisting before it was directly suppressed by the abyssal sword cauldron. It was so easy that Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. There was no doubt that the disappearance of the tribulation cloud was a huge blow to the golden figure. Lin Sun couldn't be bothered to care about what the golden figure was thinking. He let out a long breath of air, looked around, and relaxed his entire body. It's finally over. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. At this moment, this vast expanse of the starry sky had collapsed a long time ago. There were signs of destruction everywhere, and it was a scene of desolation without a trace of vitality. Only the divine city of creation stood towering in the desolate void of destruction, and it seemed to be extremely striking and made others feel extremely at ease. Lin Sun's gaze subconsciously looked towards the sky above the divine city of creation. It was covered in a layer of obscure mist, and the river diagram resided within it. A very long time ago, the Supreme Existence Chun, she had created this city by himself and left the river diagram to guard it. Firstly, it was to protect the source of creation, and secondly, it was to resist the threat of the fateless calamity. For example, Wu Yang and the others had been cultivating in the city all these years, and they'd never suffered a blow from the fateless calamity. Today, the river diagram had similarly played a vital role in the starry sky near the divine city of creation, and it repelled the strange and ominous primordial bell. It was equivalent to saving Lin Sun's life. "Thank you." Lin Sun cupped his hand from afar. After that, He turned around and flashed towards the divine city of creation. Silent night rich. Wu Yang and the others seemed as if they'd awoken from a dream when they saw Lin Sun's figure appear within their fields of vision. For a time, their hearts rose and fell, and they were all speechless. Today, Gao Yonghuai, Jiang Tao, and the others had led all the eternal figures of the various clans in the world to attack the city. Such a scene was sufficient to make anyone in the world despair. However, as soon as Lin Sun appeared here, he'd swept through over 100 existences at the Transcendence Realm by himself and annihilated 19 Creation Realm seniors. He'd revealed unparalleled and supreme elegance. But before they could rejoice, the great silence, lifeless tribulation suddenly descended. No one could have thought that Lin Sun would choose to fight against this disaster. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun, who was heavily injured, could split open the body of the golden figure at the last moment. But this was not the end. Everyone felt despair when the primordial bell appeared from the tribulation cloud vortex, and their hearts were filled with indescribable bitterness and sense of loss. But a miracle happened. They didn't die. Lin Sun didn't die, and that despair-inducing primordial bell was also repelled. All of this gave Wu Yang and the rest an unprecedented shock and impact. When they saw Lin Sun appear at this moment, they even felt like they were dreaming. They were in a trance and couldn't calm down. As for Lin Fan and Su Bai, they were relatively calm, because when the golden figure appeared, all of their senses were obscured. Even they were protected by Wu Yang and the others, so they had no idea what was going on. As the saying goes, the ignorant are fearless. However, they had witnessed the scene of Lin Sun sweeping away a group of Eternal Realm experts. When they saw Lin Sun appearing in front of them, covered with wounds, how could they not understand that even the great silence, lifeless retribution, could do nothing to Lin Sun? "Father, how are you?" Lin Fan was both excited and worried, and was the first to speak. Su Bai was also very nervous. Lin Sun's body was broken and dripping with blood, so they could not help but worry about him. "I'm fine." Lin Sun smiled. As the light fluctuated up and down his broken body and injuries healed. Of course, these were only superficial injuries. In this battle, Lin Sun also suffered internal injuries. Although they were not fatal, they were quite serious. Fortunately, Lin Sun had all kinds of healing medicines on him. To him, these injuries were nothing. "Hurry up and recuperate. Don't delay any longer. If there's anything, wait until you're healed," Wu Yang urged. The other old monsters nodded repeatedly. Lin Sun did not refuse and walked straight into the hall. When his figure disappeared, Wu Yang and the others looked at each other and could not help but let out a long sigh. After what happened today, I'm afraid the ruins of creation will fall into turmoil. Xingjia let out a sigh. Today, all the Eternal Realm experts jointly dispatched by the major clans in the world had died in front of the divine city of creation. If the news spread, one could imagine what kind of waves it would cause. They asked for it. They can't blame others. Dark Blood Underworld Emperor sneered. The High Sun clan and the Jiang clan chose to be the dogs of the mastermind behind the scenes. Their deaths are not to be regretted. The other clans were willing to be the dogs of the High Sun clan and the Jiang clan. Their deaths are also not to be regretted. If I were Lin Sun, I would definitely go to those clans and destroy them one by one. He was full of murderous intent. Today's situation was extremely dangerous. There was no doubt that if Lin Sun was in trouble, none of them would have a chance to survive. This was also the reason why Dark Blood Underworld Emperor was so angry. From now on, the ruins of creation can be described as a group of dragons without a leader. The situation of the world is also destined to change dramatically. However, who could have imagined that all of this was done by Lin Sun alone? Someone sighed. Hundreds of civilizations in the ruins of creation were strong and prosperous. But from today on, they were all trampled under Lin Sun's feet. If Lin Sun wanted to, he could even become the real supreme ruler of the ruins of creation. After all, even the great silence fatality disaster couldn't kill Lin Sun, not to mention those existences in the creation realm. I'm very curious about the identity of the destined messenger and what he knows about the mastermind behind the scenes. Wuyang said softly. His words caused the eyes of the old monsters to flicker. They were existences in the transcending rules realm. The reason why they hadn't been attacked by the Great Silence Fatality disaster was that they had been hiding in the ruins of creation to cultivate all these years. But they knew that unless they stayed here for the rest of their lives, they would have to be on guard against the Great Silence Fatality disaster in the future. I believe Lin Sun himself is most eager to know this. Let's wait here for the news, Long Xiang said. At the same time, in the main hall, Lin Sun sat cross-legged and swallowed the divine medicine to heal his injuries. At the same time, he looked at the spirit of the golden figure imprisoned in the abyssal sword cauldron with his divine sense. The figure had a pair of silver eyes and looked like a young man, but the aura around him was quite ancient. At this moment, his spirit was silent, as if he was mourning the death of his parents. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun acutely noticed that the aura of calamity on the spirit of the golden figure had long dissipated, revealing the aura of the cultivation that the figure originally possessed. Although the aura was extremely weak, Lin Sun could still recognize at a glance that the cultivation that the figure possessed had long been beyond the scope of the creation realm. It had already exceeded the scope of the creation realm. In other words, the golden figure was originally a boundless realm existence. No wonder I was not a match for him, even with the strength of my original body. Even if I used the 4 Tao forms, I could only barely contend with him. It turns out that he's a boundless realm existence. At this moment, Lin Sun finally understood. Creation realm existences like Gao Yanghuai and Jiang Tao had all reached the great perfection of this realm, but they were still far from being a match for him. And obviously, the reason why the golden figure was so powerful was not only because he could borrow the power of the Great Silence Fatality disaster, but also because he had the cultivation of the boundless realm. This was the key. As if sensing the investigation of Lin Sun's divine sense, the spirit of the golden figure trembled slightly, and then said in an indifferent voice, "I know what you want to do by keeping my spirit, but I have to tell you that even if you search my soul, it's impossible to know anything about the Lord. In other words, as long as you search my soul, the imprint left in my soul memory by the Lord will be alarmed, and my spirit will be wiped out in an instant." When he said the word Lord, he seemed extremely upset and lost. Obviously, he was still brooding over the fact that he couldn't leave the path of the tribulation cloud. "Then what can you tell me?" Lin Sun conveyed a wisp of thought through his divine sense. After a long silence, the spirit of the golden figure said, "I can tell you everything related to me." "I'm not interested in you," Lin Sun said coldly. "Haha, don't you want to know how I became the messenger of destiny?" The expression of the golden figure was very strange. It seemed to be sad, bitter, and thinking about something which was very mysterious. This time, without waiting for Lin Sun to speak, his eyes were full of reminiscence, and he continued, "I'm Shanning, a descendant of the Yingshan clan of the Chaos Spirit clan of the Tao era. I was talented when I was young, and my talent was outstanding in the whole clan. At the age of 13, I was selected as an exception and entered the first orthodoxy of the Tao era, the Three Pristines Temple. In less than 100 years, I set foot on the Tao Master Realm, which is equivalent to the immortal path of your era. At this moment, the golden figure who called himself Shanning was completely immersed in reminiscence, murmuring in a low voice. At that time, I was high-spirited and confident that my Tao was enough to shock the ages and suppress all my peers. Later, I fought in the heavens alone for 800 years, and there was no opponent in the Tao Master Realm. The world called me Tao Mastering Shan, and billions of creatures praised my name. Even people in the same realm had to lower their heads and call me Tao Master when they saw me. A wisp of indescribable emotion and satisfaction appeared on his face, and there was a wisp of pride that couldn't be restrained. 3,000 years later, I experienced the apocalypse tribulation and attained eternal Tao, and in less than 600 years, I became one of the 4 strongest rulers of the Tao era. At that time, everyone called me Ruler Shan, but I didn't care about these empty titles at all. What I sought was to overturn the past and the present, and I've always yearned for the day when I could truly transcend the change of an era. When the calamity of an era descended, I resolutely headed to the Kunlun ruins and fought in the sea of destiny. I slaughtered a path of blood through the resistance of numerous Eternal Realm figures, and in the end, I won a chance to head to the ruins of myriad profundity of Tao. When he spoke up to hear, Shannying's expression was suffused with a layer of light. It was an aura of disdain, confidence, and disdain for the world. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun, who had been silent all this while, was shocked. This fellow actually went to the ruins of myriad profundity of Tao. More updates for you. Chapter 3151. Shannying's spirit didn't notice Lin Sun's abnormality. He was still immersed in his memories. The ruins of wonderful Tao is known as the most mysterious place among the 4 great ruins of Tao. It is also regarded as the only place of transcendence. In the past eras, as long as the existence of boundless realm reached the ruins of wonderful Tao, they could compete for the ultimate road of transcendence. That year, I also had the opportunity to go to the ruins of wonderful Tao. But when I really arrived, I found that the ruins of wonderful Tao was already full of danger. Shannying's expression flickered. On the first day I arrived, I encountered an incomparably dangerous assassination and almost lost my life. I'll never forget that the old thing who wanted to kill me called himself Tianju. Speaking of this, his eyes were filled with hatred. Then he sighed. It was also at that time that the Lord saved me. He told me that as long as I followed him, I would no longer be threatened by the great silence, lifeless tribulation. The mastermind is also in the ruins of wonderful Tao. Lin Sun was shocked and almost asked aloud, but he held back in the end. The more it was like this, the more Shannyin would not answer. But Lin Sun did not gain nothing. Shanning's words finally confirmed a problem. The mastermind was a living creature, not formed by the power of rules. At that time, I didn't agree. Shannying said, although the Lord saved me, how could I be willing to be under someone else when I had already reached the ruins of wonderful Tao? How could I care about the threat of the great silence, lifeless tribulation? But later I knew that the ruins of wonderful Tao was far more dangerous than I imagined. Suddenly, he paused and changed the topic. Do you want to know what the ruins of wonderful Tao is like? Lin Sun said without hesitation, of course. What a pity. Shannying sighed. Everything I know about that place is just the tip of the iceberg. In less than 3 months, I encountered 3 fatal crises. The first time was when I was injured by a heaven's end. The second time was when I was trapped in a secret realm. And the third time was when I was injured by a sword chi that suddenly appeared. Sword chi? Lin Sun was surprised. Exactly, a strand of innate sword chi that's truly born from the laws of chaos. A divine object like this is extremely rare in the ruins of Tao, and it's also viewed as the Tao fruit of chaos by us boundless realm figures. Every single chaotic Tao fruit is a type of supreme fortune, and refining it will allow one to grasp a complete strand of the laws of chaos. Shanning said, the boundless realm is the final stage of the eternal Tao path. Whoever grasps more chaos laws will be able to possess greater strength in the boundless realm, and also have greater hopes of realizing a true sense of transcendence in this ultimate realm. Lin Sun's eyes flickered, and his mood fluctuated. This was the first time he had heard of such things. Sadly, with my strength back then, I couldn't suppress that strand of sword chi at all. Instead, I was almost killed by it. Shanning let out a long sigh. After a moment of silence, he said, in a short period of 3 months, I encountered 3 fatal calamities in the ruins of myriad ingenious Tao, and it was Lord who saved me from death 3 times. It was also at that time that I knew that Lord had been watching me since I entered the ruins of myriad ingenious Tao. He took a deep breath. At that time, I asked Lord why he saved me. Lord said that he was now trapped in the ruins of myriad ingenious Tao and couldn't leave, and he needed someone he could trust to help him with something he wanted to do. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. The backstage manipulator was trapped in the ruins of myriad ingenious Tao. This was another thing that Lin Sun didn't expect at all. For a moment, there were waves in his heart. From then on, I gave my life to Lord. A gentleman will die for his bosom friend, not to mention that Lord has saved me 3 times. Ing Shanying's expression was complicated. There was gratitude, sadness, and loss, and he didn't speak for a long time. Lin Sun couldn't help asking, what happened later? Later, Ing Shanning had just uttered these 2 words when his expression changed abruptly. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. Then, he revealed a bitter smile. I have long guessed that this would happen. Master, my life is returned to you. While his voice was still echoing, his primordial spirit turned into light rain and disappeared. This sudden scene shocked Lin Sun. He was caught off guard and had no time to save Ing Shanning. Ing Shanying's primordial spirit disappeared. Damn it! Lin Sun's face was gloomy. Ing Shanning knew many secrets that Lin Sun didn't know, and he was most likely to learn something about the backstage manipulator from him. But now, his primordial spirit suddenly collapsed and disappeared. Undoubtedly, as Ing Shanning said at the beginning, there was a mark left by the backstage manipulator in his primordial spirit, and it was this mark that destroyed Ing Shanying's primordial spirit. It could also be inferred that the backstage manipulator had known that the Great Silence fatal disaster failed to kill him this time. After the primordial bell returned, the backstage manipulator must have noticed something unusual, so he didn't hesitate to kill Ing Shanning, the messenger of destiny. Lin Sun's black eyes were cold as he guessed the reason. The primordial spirit of a boundless realm existence from the Tao era, a powerhouse who had once shocked an era and fought for a chance in the Kunlun ruined Sea of Destiny to arrive at the ruins of Wonder of Tao, had actually been killed just like that. Besides causing Lin Sun to be shocked, he couldn't help but feel horrified. He could tell that Ing Shanning had sincerely given his life to the backstage manipulator, but the one who killed him in the end was also the backstage manipulator. It had to be said that this was very sad. After a while, Lin Sun calmed down completely after stabilizing his mind. Chatting with Ing Shanning allowed him to learn quite a few valuable things. Firstly, the chance of survival that he fought for in the Kunlun ruins was indeed in the Kunlun ruins' source energy, the Sea of Destiny. All those years ago, Ing Shanning had grasped a chance in the Sea of Destiny and finally realized his goal of heading to the ruins of Wonder. Secondly, the ruins of Wonder of Tao was filled with danger. Even a boundless realm existence like Ing Shanning would encounter all sorts of fatal threats. But similarly, there were eras that could allow boundless realm existences to achieve breakthroughs in the ruins of Wonder of Tao. For example, the chaotic Tao fruit. The so-called chaotic Tao fruit was the complete energy of laws that was born from within the chaos. To boundless realm existences, the more chaotic Tao fruits they refined, the more hope they had to achieve ultimate transcendence from the boundless realm. Thirdly, the backstage manipulator was an extremely formidable existence, but he was currently trapped in the ruins of Wonder of Tao and was unable to escape, so he had no choice but to borrow the strength of others to do things for him. For example, Ing Shanning was one of the emissaries of destiny that worked for him. After understanding all of this, Lin Sun finally understood why so many eras had passed, yet no one knew exactly who the backstage manipulator was. This person had probably been trapped in the ruins of Wonder of Tao a very long time ago. Chen Linkong had once said that Golden Cicada had once told him that there were many clues that proved that the backstage manipulator was very likely in the ruins of Wonder of Tao. Chen Linkong had once told Lin Sun these words when he headed to the ruins of Wonder of Tao. Now it would seem that Golden Cicada's inference was undoubtedly correct. Master had already set off for the ruins of Wonder of Tao a very long time ago. Even the ancestors of the 4 great ancestral courts and some boundless realm existences for various eras had already gone there a long time ago. Lin Sun recalled many things of the past, but whether it's Master or the others, there hasn't been any news related to the backstage manipulator until now. Could it be that all the experts that had arrived at the ruins of Wonder of Tao in the past were trapped within, or had already met with misfortune? The more Lin Sun thought about it, the more he felt that the ruins of Wonder of Tao was too mysterious. Even the backstage manipulator was trapped within. This simply overturned Lin Sun's previous understanding. After a long time, Lin Sun finally discarded all distracting thoughts and focused on recovering from his injuries. 2 days later, Lin Sun walked out of the hall. Wu Yang and the others had been waiting there for a long time, and they couldn't help but step forward to ask when they saw Lin Sun. They were all delighted to know that Lin Sun's injuries had completely healed. "Little friend, did you manage to find out anything from the soul of the emissary of destiny?" asked Xing Jia. Lin Sun immediately told them about Shan Ying's origins and everything he knew. For a time, the hearts of Wu Yang and the others were in turmoil. From the looks of it, even the ruins of Wonder of Tao isn't an absolutely safe place. Someone let out a long sigh. In everyone's knowledge, the ruins of Wonder of Tao was the only place that could truly be unafraid of the threat of the great silence, lifeless tribulation. It was also the place that any eternal realm cultivator dreamed of seeking the Tao. However, after understanding what Shanning had said, these old monsters could not help but feel heavy in their hearts. What's the point of worrying about this? Even if an era is destroyed, as long as we stay in the ruins of creation, we can survive and wait for the arrival of the next era, said Wu Yang. Moreover, people like us who have exceeded the realm of rules probably won't even have the chance to fight for a chance to cross after entering the Kunlun ruins, let alone head to the ruins of Wonder of Tao. Shan was a boundless realm cultivator, but he had experienced many intense competitions in the Kunlun ruins back then. Only then did he manage to carve out a bloody path and fight for a chance to head to the ruins of Wonder of Tao. Compared to him, it was simply a pipe dream for someone who had exceeded the realm of rules to seek such an opportunity. Senior Wu Yang is right. As long as we stay in the ruins of creation, we won't have to worry about the danger of an era being destroyed, said Lin Sun. He had already grasped the rules of creation and completely understood the meaning of the existence of the order of creation. It could be said that this was the nest of each era. Even if an era was destroyed, as long as they stayed in the ruins of creation, they would not have to worry about suffering. It seems like that's the only way. The old monsters nodded in agreement. What do you plan to do next? Wu Yang looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun said without hesitation, I want to make a trip back to the eternal world now. This trip to the ruins of creation had allowed him to learn many things. He planned to bring the entire Yuan sect with him after he returned and move them to the divine city of creation. Only there could he feel completely at ease. Otherwise, the existence of the mastermind and the great silence, lifeless tribulation would ultimately be a threat that would cause him to be unable to eat or sleep in peace. Chapter 3152 Eternal True World Yuan Sect Mother, I'm back. Zhao Jingxian, who was sleeping, was awakened by a familiar voice and slowly opened her eyes. Then, she saw Lin Fan standing in front of the bed. Zhao Jingxian sat up and said excitedly, Fan her. She still could not believe it and thought that she was dreaming. Lin Fan stepped forward and hugged her tightly. He smiled and said, Mother, I made you worry these days. It was Father who saved me and Senior Brother Subai. We're all fine now. Zhao Jingshuan's nose turned sour, and she cried tears of joy. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. I didn't know how to live when you weren't around. Lin Fan's heart was in turmoil. He was touched and guilty. Mother, don't worry. I won't let you worry anymore. Where's your father? Zhao Jingxian asked. Father went to find Senior Xin Failing and the others. Lin Fan helped Zhao Jingxian up from the bed, made a cup of hot tea, and handed it to her. Mother, you don't know how powerful Father is now. He alone killed so many people in the ruins of fate that no one dares to call themselves supreme. Zhao Jingxian interrupted him angrily. I don't want to hear this. I just want you and your father to be safe. I don't need to worry about you. Lin Fan immediately felt embarrassed. Go to the ruins of fate. In the central hall, when they learned that Lin Sun planned to bring the entire Yuan sect to the ruins of fate, Xian Failing, Fong Daoping, and the other elders were stunned. That's right. Only when we get there will the Yuan sect not have to worry about being attacked by the mastermind behind the scenes, nor will we have to worry about the danger of the destruction of the era. Lin Sun said, "Moreover, after you reach the ruins of fate, you will also have a chance to prove your Tao to be eternal. Otherwise, you won't have another chance in the eternal true world." Xian Failing and the others looked at each other and hesitated. The Yuan sect had stood tall for countless years. Who would be willing to let them leave just like that? However, they also knew that Lin Sun's arrangement was undoubtedly the safest and safest way. "Let's think about this matter carefully," Xian Failing said. Lin Sun nodded. "There's no hurry. I still have to go to the ninth heaven. Seniors, just give me an answer in half a month." "You're still going to ninth heaven?" Xian Failing and the others were stunned. Lin Sun smiled and said, "When I went to the ninth heaven, I let the Yi clan, Xingtian clan, and Panwu clan escape. How can I let them go so easily?" Everyone couldn't help but reveal strange expressions. In the past, it was the eternal gods of the ninth heaven who bullied Lin Sun. Now it was Lin Sun's turn to bully the eternal gods. Besides that, I still have to make a trip to the origin sect and the Zen sect to strive to put an end to the enmity of the past. After that, I won't have any regrets when I head to the ruins of creation." Lin Sun said softly. Xian Failing and others were all shocked that Lin Sun was going to settle accounts with which cult and Zen cult. Xian Failing said in a low voice, "Let's not talk about anything else. I think it's necessary to communicate with the Spirit Church about going to the ruins of creation. If it's feasible, I hope the Spirit Church will leave with us." "Of course." Lin Sun nodded. He already had such a plan. "All right, we'll talk to the Spirit Church about this." Xian Failing made a decision. On the same day, Lin Sun's green wood Taoist body went to the ninth heaven alone. His scarlet fire Taoist body and platinum Taoist body went to the witch cult together. His original body and yellow Taoist body set off for the Zen sect. As for the black water Taoist body, Lin Sun still left it behind to guard the Yuan sect. The Zen world. The place where the Zen ancestral court was located was also known as the Radiant Buddhist Land. The entrance to the Zen world was located in a divine mountain bathed in billions of rays of auspicious light. However, since ancient times, very few people in the world knew about this place. As a result, the impression that the Zen sect gave the world was extremely mysterious. Buzz on this day, there was a fluctuation in the void, and Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. His eyes looked at the divine mountain in the distance. With his divine sense, he could see at a glance that the divine mountain was covered with countless mysterious and unfathomable restrictive power, and the power of the divine level order was surging within. Ordinary, eternal figures in the law-transcending realm would not be able to sneak in. Lin Sun couldn't help but think of some things in the past. Back then, eldest senior brother and the others were trapped in the Taiyu Real realm, and a group of big shots of the Zen sect blocked the surroundings of the Taiyu Real realm. At that time, Shi, one of the 9 great Buddha primogenitors of Diana's sect, led a group of masters to hunt down Pu Jun and Shuya. Fortunately, when they fled to the Cloud Guard house, they met Lin Sun, who helped them resolve the trouble. Back then, on his way back from the 10 Devil Territories, he was blocked by the Dharma form of the Zen sect's present Buddha, Jinan. Fortunately, he was helped by the Dharma form of martial Uncle Kong Ju. Back then, all kinds of grievances of the past surged into Lin Sun's mind like a tide. And now, he was here to end these grievances. Whoosh, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and layers of the divine level order spread out, covering the world. Then he spoke in a voice. Lin Sun, the successor of Fong Siyuan, has come today to end the grievances of the past. Where are the people of the Zen sect? The voice was like a great bell, rumbling through the world. The sound waves spread, causing the clouds to collapse and all things to rustle. The hundreds of millions of auspicious lights covering the mountains in the distance exploded and collapsed like a tide. Immediately afterward, countless restrictions fluctuated, the Buddhist light was steaming, and there was a burst of noisy sounds. Obviously, the powerhouses in the Zen sect were alarmed. Soon, many figures appeared out of thin air, each of them surrounded by Buddhist light, solemn and powerful aura. Lin Sun, you really came. The leader was an old monk with white eyebrows and a white beard. His expression was solemn. At this moment, these powerhouses of the Zen sect also saw Lin Sun's figure. Although he stood there alone, his tall figure was like a supreme ruler, making people feel pressure. For a moment, their expressions became extremely solemn. They had already known what happened in the ninth heaven some time ago. How could they not know that Lin Sun had already become extremely powerful? However, no one expected that Lin Sun would come to them today. The hatred of the past has not been settled. How can I not come? Lin Sun put his hands behind his back, his expression calm, without joy or sorrow. I'll give you a chance. Bow your head and admit your guilt now, and I can give you a quick death. Otherwise, don't blame me for flattening this place. His voice resounded clearly through the universe, and it caused the experts of the Zen sect to feel sorrow and rage in their hearts. As one of the four ancestral halls, they had never been threatened like this for countless years. Lin Sun, aren't you afraid of the wrath of heaven for being so fierce and rampant? An old monk shouted angrily. Puff! Lin Sun pointed in the air, and the old monk's body instantly exploded, turning into ashes and dissipating. Both his body and soul were destroyed. This scene shocked the other bigwigs of the Zen sect, and their bodies stiffened. It should be known that the place where they stood was covered with countless restrictions, as well as the fluctuations of their Zen sect's divine order. However, in front of Lin Sun's killing intent, it was as if it didn't exist. It didn't stop him at all. In the past years, your Zen sect has used countless despicable means to deal with my mountain of CUN. How dare you say that I'm rampant and fierce? How ridiculous! Lin Sun's eyes were cold, and his expression was full of mockery. Are you only allowed to harm others, but not allowed to fight back? Shameless. His voice shook the sky. Lin Sun, can you give our Zen sect a chance to make up for our past mistakes? The white-browed old monk put his palms together, and his expression was full of pity and bitterness. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. How? As long as our Zen sect has a chance to continue to exist, we will give our lives to you without any complaints, the white-browed old monk said in a deep voice. The others couldn't help but be in an uproar, and their expressions changed. This was equivalent to bowing and admitting defeat to Lin Sun, and it filled their hearts with sorrow and depression. However, Lin Sun said without hesitation, "Impossible. From today onwards, the Zen sect will never exist in the world. I advise you to give up as soon as possible." Lin Sun, you've gone too far. A bronze-skinned, middle-aged monk with a strong aura said angrily. Do you really think that we can only be slaughtered like the eternal God clan in the ninth heaven? Puff! An invisible sword chi swept over and killed the middle-aged monk on the spot. His blood splashed in the void. Lin Sun said indifferently, I'm sorry. Now you are indeed no different from fish on the chopping board. The bloody scene made the others' faces turn blue, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. We have already admitted our guilt. We only hope that our sect can survive. Taoism Pier Lin, are you really not going to give us a chance? The white-browed monk looked at Lin Sun. Yes, Lin Sun nodded with a calm expression, but there was no doubt about it. The white-browed monk let out a long sigh and said no more. The next moment, from the holy mountain under their feet, countless restrictive forces gushed out, all releasing blazing and mighty Sanskrit Buddha light, and attacked Lin Sun. That kind of power was enough to make people who exceeded the rules tremble. But Lin Sun didn't even look at it and waved his sleeve. Boom! The mighty Sanskrit Buddha light vanished into thin air, turning into nothingness. Immediately after, Lin Sun took a step forward. The world turned upside down, and the sun and moon lost their light. The countless restrictive forces around the holy mountain exploded with a rumbling sound, turning into a rain of light that filled the sky. This is the power of transcendence. All of a sudden, the white-browed old monk's face turned deathly pale. He finally understood why Lin Sun dared to attack so fearlessly. It was just that when he reacted, it was already a step too late. He saw, as Lin Sun took a step in the air, the world turned upside down and everything collapsed. The holy mountain that had been in the world for countless years collapsed and turned into ruins, setting off a sky full of smoke and dust. As for the white-browed old monk and the other big shots, they had long been imprisoned by the terrifying power released by Lin Sun. All of them were unable to move, and their faces were covered with fear and despair. Don't worry, Lin Sun is not someone who kills indiscriminately. Although the Zen church has been removed from the world, everyone in the sect will end up the same as the eternal gods in the ninth heaven. Some can live, and some must die. With an indifferent voice, Lin Sun had already arrived at the entrance to the Zen world. He waved his right hand. Boom! The divine-level power that covered the entrance to the Zen world also exploded like paper. In the next moment, Lin Sun's figure stepped in. Thank you, Brother Awadara, for the reward from the leader again. I will continue to add updates tonight, and there will be a special update at the end of the month to thank the leader. Chapter 3153. In the Zen world. In a cave dwelling, a 9-colored lotus swayed and sprinkled colorful light. Fanon, who was thin and hunched, sat cross-legged on a futon. His face was thin, and he had a snow-white beard. There was an absolute beginning stone statue in front of him. That heretic is here. Are you really going to abandon the Zen sect? Fanon's expression was uncertain as he stared at the absolute beginning stone statue. This treasure that was left behind by the Zen sect's patriarch, sure, hadn't had the slightest reaction since the last time it transmitted a thought fluctuation. It was the same now. Outside the cave dwelling, there were noises. There were angry shouts, unwilling roars, and panic screams. There were also the rumbles of fighting, the sounds of rocks collapsing, and the loud noises of palaces being destroyed. All of this caused the gloominess in the space between Fanon's brows to grow denser, and a wisp of indescribable sorrow and bitterness surged into his heart. After a while, Fanon suddenly grabbed the absolute beginning stone statue with both hands. His eyes shone with a frightening divine light. You harmed the Zen sect. You. His deep roar was like that of a desperate beast. His thin and tranquil face became livid and sinister, and his eyes were filled with rage and hatred. Bang! The absolute beginning stone statue exploded into powder that fell from Fanon's fingers. Fanon panted for a while. He suddenly turned his head and saw a tall figure standing at the entrance of the cave dwelling. Lin Sun. Fanon's pupil shrank. He slowly stood up from the futon and said in a hoarse voice, I'm the only one left. Lin Sun shook his head. I'm not a person who kills indiscriminately. Some innocent people don't need to die because of the mistakes of the Zen sect. Fanon was stunned. His eyes were complicated. So I have to thank you on behalf of those descendants who survived? Lin Sun pointed at his heart. I have a clear conscience. I'm not pretending to be merciful. Fake mercy. His words were obviously sarcastic. It was a mockery of the Zen sect. But Fanon was not in the mood to care about this. He looked at Lin Sun and said after a while, I don't understand. Aren't you afraid of the mastermind behind the calamity of the era? Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. What's the use of being afraid? Will the mastermind let me live because of fear? Fanon narrowed his eyes and nodded. Right, you have no way out, so you're not afraid. Sometimes, when you have too many ways out, you will make some stupid decisions. He remembered the absolute beginning stone statue left by the patriarch. It was a treasure that guarded the Zen sect, but it was also the treasure of the absolute beginning. It was the treasure of the absolute sect. Before I make my move, there's something I don't understand. Lin Sun asked, why does your Zen church hate Mountain Heart so much? Not only the Zen sect, but also the witch sect. So far, Lin Sun had not figured out the reason. God, Fanon said. Fanon said without hesitation. Among the four great ancestral courts, the patriarchs of my sect and the patriarchs of the voodoo cult were mortal enemies with your master, the master of the heart core, before they established their sections. In the four ancestral courts, the patriarch of the Zen sect and the patriarch of the witch sect were enemies with your master, the master of heart, before they established their orthodoxy. Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh. God, this kind of hatred was the most difficult to solve. You see me as a demon, and I see you as a heretic. Just like water and fire, there must be a winner in order to resolve it. What a pity. At this moment, Fan and let out a long sigh. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. What's a pity? Fan said with a strange expression. I don't know if you can survive the end of the era. It's a pity. Lin Sun smiled. He didn't say anything else and started a fight. After a while, when Lin Sun walked out of the Zen realm, the divine order of the ancestral court of the Zen sect had been taken away. The mountain gate had collapsed, and the foundation built over countless years had been destroyed. From then on, there would be no Zen sect in this world. The ancestral court of the witch sect. In front of the mountain gate, Lin Sun's scarlet flame Taoist body stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at the familiar place with emotion. Back then, he and Yuan Changtian represented the Yuan sect and came to the witch sect to participate in the operation of the Ten Devils' Land. That was the first time he entered the witch sect. Now, when he started all over again, he was in existence at the creation realm that had stepped foot onto the eternal path towards the Tao. It's really this guy. Humph, does he think that our witch sect is as weak as the eternal gods in the ninth heaven? In front of the mountain gate in the distance, many strong figures of the witch sect appeared. Each of them had a fierce and savage aura, full of murderous intent. The witch sect was very special. They didn't respect heaven and earth, didn't respect etiquette, and were not afraid of death. They were proud to die in battle. Therefore, even when they saw Lin Sun at this moment, they didn't show any fear. However, not being afraid of death didn't mean that they were reckless. They had also learned about what happened in the ninth heaven, so they naturally knew how terrifying Lin Sun was. It seems that you already know why I'm here. Then it's easy. I'll give you a chance. Do you choose to die in battle, or surrender immediately and let me punish you for your crimes? Lin Sun's scarlet flame Taoist body said indifferently. As he spoke, he waved his sleeve. Whoosh, a divine-level order soared into the sky and covered the entire sky. You want us to surrender? Wishful thinking. An old man in a beast robe of the witch sect shouted, and his voice was like thunder resounding through the sky. Formation. Boom. More than 100 important figures of the witchcraft cult flew out and formed a grand battle formation in the void. The moment the battle formation took shape, it actually affected the god-level order power that enveloped the entire witchcraft cult and erupted with boundlessly terrifying might. Kill. The old man in a beast robe took the lead to attack, and the whole battle formation was immediately activated, causing the world to shake and all directions to tremble. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Lin Sun snorted coldly and stretched out his hand to sweep the void. Flames rose all over the sky, and the dazzling and blazing torrent of flames was like a wanton ocean, falling down to the ninth heaven and drowning the whole world. In an instant, the bodies of the old man in a beast robe and hundreds of big shots of the witch sect all turned into ashes. They were easily erased from the world like paper paste. That scene made all the strong men of the witch sect near the mountain gate in the distance horrified, and their faces changed. If you're not afraid of death, you can kill me now, Lin Sun said indifferently, and his eyes were full of coldness. Compared with the Zen sect, he hated the witch sect more. This orthodoxy was unscrupulous and unscrupulous. In the past years, it had sent forces to deal with him more than once, and they had formed a deep hatred. Since the moment our witch sect was established, we have never been afraid, a tall man in a gray robe shouted. His figure shook and turned into a height of thousands of meters, and his whole body was covered with terrible eternal light. It was an existence in the realm of transgressing the rules. Really? Lin Sun patted in the air. Bang! The tall man was directly slapped to kneel on the ground, and the ground collapsed and a big pit was formed. His skin was cracked and blood was flowing. The strong men of the witch sect felt like they were struck by lightning, as if the sky had collapsed. They were not afraid of death or fighting, but in the face of Lin Sun, who could easily suppress the strong in the realm of transgressing the rules, they could not help but feel desperate. He was too strong. Fighting against him was no different from an ant trying to shake a tree. If it was in the past, they would not be afraid with the existence of the boundless realm in the witch sect. But now, things had changed, and it was too late to say anything. Lin Sun, do you think you can make the witch sect lower its head like this? Don't even think about it. The man in a gray robe roared. It doesn't matter if you don't lower your head. I'll just erase your orthodoxy from the world. Lin Sun said casually. Ridiculous. The sages of the witch sect have already gone to the ruins of Tao. When they come back, you and the Yuan sect will all die. The man in a gray robe roared. Lin Sun's expression was as calm as before. I'm afraid the sages of the witch sect will not be able to return in this lifetime. But don't worry, sooner or later, I'll go to the ruins of Tao to find them. Bang! He pointed in the air, and a man in a gray robe with the cultivation of transgressing the rules exploded, and his body and soul were destroyed. Then, Lin Sun walked towards the gate of the witch sect. Kill! Many fearless powerhouses rushed forward, but they all died in front of Lin Sun like moths flying into a flame. No one could stop him. In a flash, Lin Sun broke through the layers of restrictions, tore open the gate passage covered by the divine order, and killed his way into the witch world. He was unparalleled all the way, in less than 10 minutes. The witch sect's ancestral court, one of the 4 great ancestral courts, was flattened by Lin Sun. Just like before, Lin Sun did not kill them all. This was the principle he abided by. He only killed the leader and did not implicate the innocent. On that day, the witch sect's ancestral court was also removed from the world. The primordial realm. On the day Lin Sun's original body returned, the Scarlet Flame Taoist body and the Platinum Taoist body also returned, and they brought back the news of the witch sect's ancestral court being destroyed. Lin Sun was not surprised by this. With his current realm, it was difficult to find an opponent in the entire eternal true world. Destroying the witch sect, which had suffered great losses, was a piece of cake. 10 days later, the Greenwood Taoist body, who had gone to the Ninth Heaven region, returned. It turned out that when the Greenwood Taoist body arrived at the Ninth Heaven region, he found that the Yi clan, the Panwu clan, and the Xingtian clan, the 3 great eternal gods, had not shown up. He had no idea where they were hiding. The Greenwood Taoist body went through all kinds of investigations and used all kinds of forbidden secret techniques, but he still could not find the hiding place of the 3 great eternal gods. In the end, he could only return empty-handed. Lin Sun was not very disappointed about this. Even if the 3 eternal gods managed to survive the destruction of their era, they and the civilization of this era would still appear in the ruins of creation. When that time came, Lin Sun had a way to deal with them. What do you think, seniors? Lin Sun asked in the central hall. Previously, Xian Failing and Fong Daoping had already learned the news of the destruction of Yuan sect and Zen sect. They were shocked and sighed with emotion. At this moment, when they heard Lin Sun's question, they looked at each other and nodded. We have made our decision and decided to do as you said. Xian Failing smiled. The current Yuan sect was not just made up of the descendants of the Yuan sect. There were also members of the Lin family, the Luo family, the Xian family, the Yuan family, the Dugu family, and other clans. No matter how reluctant they were, they had to consider the overall situation and everyone's future. That's good. Lin Sun immediately relaxed and smiled. When we reach the ruins of fate, we will be completely safe. More updates for you. Chapter 3154. If we leave, what will happen to all living beings in the world? Du Guiyong suddenly asked. Lin Sun was stunned and fell silent. The other old monsters also had different expressions, and their emotions were complicated. There were hundreds of millions of living beings in the 9 heavens of the eternal world. Once an era was destroyed in the future, these living beings would definitely suffer. Beyond the eternal world, there is also the boundless world, which would also suffer from the destruction of an era. It could be said that this was a disaster that all the living beings in an era had to face. We can't even take care of ourselves, so how can we take care of others? Doogie Young said in a low voice, "It is indeed our duty to help all the living beings in the world, but we have to wait until we have the ability to do so." Fong Daoping sighed softly. "Alas, that's true, but when I think of how innocent all the living beings in the world are going to lose their lives because of an era's disaster, I still feel very uncomfortable. There is still more than 800 years before the arrival of the era's disaster. If possible, I will try my best to prevent the destruction of an era from happening," Lin Sun suddenly said. All of a sudden, the atmosphere in the hall became silent. If someone else said this, they would probably be regarded as a madman. After all, no one knew how many eras had been destroyed in the great disaster in the past. If this disaster could be stopped, why hadn't anyone stopped it until now? And it should be known that in the past eras, there were countless giants of the boundless realm who could walk through many eras. Didn't they try to stop all this from happening? Obviously, all those existences that tried to stop all of this had failed without exception. And now, Lin Sun made the same decision. How could the old monsters not be shocked by this? However, he still did it even though he knew it was impossible. His sense of responsibility and state of mind were enough to move people and make them admire him. Let's talk about the future in the future. It will be better if we can do it, but if we can't, there's no need to force ourselves. After all, the most powerful beings in the previous eras couldn't stop all this. Xian Failing seemed to be encouraging Lin Sun, but in fact, he didn't have much confidence in Lin Sun's decision. The other old monsters were the same. Lin Sun smiled and said no more. Of course, he didn't have to stop the occurrence of the era's disaster, but if there was a chance to stop it in the future, why not? On the same day, Xian Failing and the other elders got to work. They gathered everyone in the primordial realm and announced their decision to head to the ruins of creation. No one objected. Everyone knew that such a decision was the best choice for them. Who could possibly object? In less than a day, the entire Yuan sect was ready. 2 days later, Green Cloud Spirit Master of the Ancestral Court of the Spirit Church came with a group of big shots. They had also decided to go to the ruins of fate with Lin Sun. That was why he had brought everyone from the spiritual church with him this time. Lin Sun was naturally very happy about this. It was also on that day that Lin Sun acted. He refined the entire primordial realm and brought everyone out of the eternal true world. No one knew that the Zen sect and the Witch sect had already been destroyed. No one knew that the Yuan Church and the Spirit Church had been taken away by Lin Sun to the ruins of fate. To the people in the world, the 4 great ancestral courts were too far away from them, and it was impossible for them to know that the 4 great ancestral courts had already disappeared from the eternal true world within an incredibly short period of time. The ruins of fortune. Lin Sun walked forward alone in the vast galaxy. At his level of cultivation, he could cross a galaxy with every step he took. If he had not been afraid of the backlash from the laws of the world and had no choice but to suppress his aura, his speed would have been even faster. When he arrived at the galaxy where the divine city of fortune was, Lin Sun's divine sense suddenly sensed that something was off. With the area where the divine city of fortune was as the center, there were many figures scattered in the void in all directions. These figures clearly came from different forces, and they were all in groups. But that was not important. What was important was that these figures were all kneeling in the direction of the divine city of fortune with their heads lowered. At a glance, there were figures kneeling everywhere. There were men and women, old and young, and it was a spectacular scene. This surprised Lin Sun, but after thinking about it for a while, he vaguely understood. Shaking his head, Huang Xiaolong walked toward the Fortune Divine City. It's Senior Lin. Senior Lin has shown himself. In next to no time, someone noticed Lin Sun's figure, and it caused a mighty uproar to arise in the surroundings. All those figures that knelt there instinctively looked over. They felt as if Lin Sun was a monarch that had arrived here, and he was being worshipped by all. All of you are from the god clans of the various eras, yet you're kneeling here now. Aren't all of you afraid of bringing shame to your clans? Lin Sun stopped moving and spoke indifferently, and his voice swept through the starry sky. Those figures still knelt there, but their expressions changed indeterminately. Senior, we've come to atone for our crimes. Please be magnanimous and forgive the clans that stand behind us. So long as our clans are able to survive, we're willing to pay any price. A white-haired old man spoke with a trembling voice, and his face was covered in reverence and anxiousness. Please forgive us, Senior. Please forgive us, Senior. For a time, all the figures that knelt in this expanse of the starry sky started begging for mercy, and their voices reverberated through space for a long time. If such a scene were to be witnessed by everyone in the world, their jaws would definitely hit the ground from shock. These were all great figures of the various god clans. In the past, they were high and mighty, and they looked down upon an era. How noble and dazzling they were. But now, all of them were like prisoners, begging for mercy in terror. Sure enough, you've come for this. Lin Sun's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. Obviously, the news that Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and other Eternal Realm figures had died here had already spread, and the god clans of the various eras and the ruins of fate knew about it. It also made them aware of the danger of annihilation, so they resolutely chose to come and beg for mercy regardless of their dignity in life. Senior, we've been blind in the past, offended your divine power, and made a big mistake. This time, we've come together to ask for your forgiveness. Please show mercy. The white-haired old man spoke in a trembling voice. All the eyes present also looked at Lin Sun in unison, and there was awe, anxiety, panic, and pleading on their faces. They had no time to care about their dignity and face. For the sake of the lives of their clans, they could only come and beg Lin Sun to forgive them. Otherwise, with Lin Sun's ability, it would be a piece of cake for him to destroy the god clan behind them. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun said, "You can be spared from death, but you can't escape punishment. Hand over the divine level orders in your clans, and I'll let bygones be bygones. Hand over the divine level orders." His words made everyone present turn pale, and their hearts bleed as if they were cut by a knife. The divine level orders were the foundation of a god clan. Losing the protection of the divine level orders would not have a great impact on their clans in a short period of time, but in the long run, their respective forces would suffer a disastrous decline, and the foundation of their clans would gradually decline. But if they didn't hand over the divine level orders, they would probably face Lin Sun's wrath. What, you don't want to? Lin Sun sneered. The Pu clan is willing. Suddenly, a man in a purple robe shouted, "As long as we can get your forgiveness, our Pu clan will send the divine level orders to the divine city of fate within 7 days." Okay, Lin Sun nodded. Seeing this, the others present also spoke. The Yin clan is also willing to offer the divine level orders. The Liangxiu clan is willing to listen to Senior's arrangements and hand over the divine level orders. For a time, more than a dozen god clans agreed. Lin Sun could not help but feel surprised. Was his words so effective now? From this, it could be seen that the battle a few days ago had clearly frightened these god clans. Only then would they be willing to do this. Senior, our clan has lost the divine level orders a long time ago. Well, what should we do? There are also people who had anxious expressions and spoke in panic. Such situations were not uncommon. Soon, other god clans experts also spoke up, hoping to compensate with other treasures. Then just hand over the clan-hallowed treasures of your clans. Lin Sun said without hesitation. Immediately, those god clans experts who did not have the divine level orders heaved a long sigh of relief. Senior, the divine level orders are too precious. We can't make the decision on our own. We need to return to the clan to discuss this. Can you give us some time so we can make a decision as soon as possible? There were also many people who spoke up anxiously. Sure, you must give me an answer within 3 days. As for those who have already agreed to hand over the divine level orders and clan hallowed treasures, they must be sent to the divine city of fate within 7 days. Lin Sun said casually. He was not coveting the divine level orders. Instead, he wanted to make use of this matter to see if the god clans in the world were sincere in atoning for their sins. This would determine his attitude toward these god clans. Yes, everyone agreed. Lin Sun no longer paid attention to these people. With a single step, his figure swept into the divine city of fate. It was only when they saw Lin Sun's figure disappear that these god clans experts who were kneeling in the void stood up as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Fortunately, things have finally taken a turn for the better. Now, I can finally return and explain to my clans. Some were so excited that they felt tears welling up in their eyes. Ever since they learned that Gao Yanghuai, Jiang Tao, and the other eternal realm existences have been completely annihilated, the god clans in the world have been unable to eat or sleep in peace. They were filled with fear and despair. The worst thing was, even if they wanted to escape, they could not escape from the ruins of fate. Now, although Lin Sun's request was a little harsh, it was still within their acceptable range. Of course, not everyone was very happy. There were also many who were filled with bitterness, heaviness, and helplessness. This was because they knew that if they did this, their clans would not have an easy time in the future. Let's go. Let's quickly return and inform the clans of this news. Yes, there's no time to lose. Let's go. Very soon, these god clans experts left in a hurry and disappeared into the vast starry sky. Chapter 31:55. Divine City of Fortune. In an ancient palace, a banquet was being held. Lin Sun was seated in the center of the main seat. On both sides of the hall sat Weiyang, Xing Jia, and the other sages of the ancient Desolation region, as well as Xian Feiling, Du Guiyong, and Feng Daoping. Everyone drank and chatted, and the atmosphere was harmonious. By the end of the banquet, the arrangements for the people of the primordial realm had been finalized. Divine City of Fortune was huge, no different from a small world. It was more than enough to accommodate everyone in the primordial realm. However, with more people, rules and order were needed. Otherwise, there would inevitably be disputes. Lin Sun left these matters to Weiyang, Xian Feiling, and the others. There is only one thing Lin Sun had to do, and that was to transform the Divine City of Fortune. Not only did he have to expand, but he also had to open up some secret realms to satisfy everyone's cultivation needs. Fortunately, he was the master of the Divine City of Fortune and controlled the rules of the city. Moreover, he had plenty of divine materials to transform the city. In short, Lin Sun's plan was to turn the Divine City of Fortune into a pure land suitable for everyone's cultivation. He didn't have to worry about encountering the great silence, lifeless calamity, nor did he have to worry about the impact of the end of an era. On the same day, Lin Sun's figure rose into the air and stood in the sky above the Divine City of Fortune. He lowered his eyes and looked down at the majestic and ancient city. Then he slowly extended his hands and held them up in the air. Rise! Lin Sun's mind moved. Boom! The rule power that enveloped the Divine City of Fortune suddenly rumbled, and billions of dazzling lights of the great path shot out. Weiyang, Xian Feiling, and the others who stood in the city could clearly feel the subtle and shocking changes in the rules of the city. In the past, anyone who set foot on the immortal path would have their cultivation suppressed to the Emperor realm. Those in the eternal realm would be repelled and attacked by the rules of the city. But now, with the changes in the rules of the city, it was enough for those in the transcendental realm to enter and exit the city without worrying about their cultivation being suppressed. Such a method is simply stealing all the good fortune. Xing Jia exclaimed. Everyone couldn't help but smile. This was the Divine City of Fortune. Lin Sun's actions could also be described as stealing all the good fortune. It was a double meaning. Crash. Following that, Lin Sun flicked his sleeves, and one divine order after another swept out like a tide, transforming into an invisible canopy that covered the sky above the Divine City of Fortune. There was a total of 8 divine rank laws, and every single divine rank order was branded with complete grand Tao profundities. All the cultivators that resided within the city were able to comprehend the profundities of these divine rank laws as they cultivated, and it would improve their own cultivation in the Grand Tao. One must know that in the ninth heaven, an eternal God only has one divine order at most. But now, there were a total of 8 divine rank orders protecting this world. It was easy to imagine how great the benefits one would obtain from cultivating in the city would be. When they saw this scene, Wu Yang and the other existences at the realm of transcendence were all stunned, their eyes staring blankly as their minds roiled endlessly. Someone chuckled and said, "In the entire world, no one can compare to little friend Lin in terms of wealth." Everyone laughed. The number of divine-level sequences Lin Sun possessed was indeed unparalleled. Wu Shuang, from today onward, you'll stand on guard within this city, and you'll be in control of the 8 divine rank orders. Remember, you have to maintain the order within the city, and you're not allowed to cause trouble within the city. High in the sky, Lin Sun whispered. Dressed in white, Wu Shuang, who looked like a pure girl, nodded obediently and said in a clear voice, "Master, Wu Shuang will not let you down." After a pause, she suddenly asked, If Master's relatives and friends cause trouble in the city." Lin Sun glanced at her and said, "The rules are set by me. If they don't follow the rules, it means they have a problem with me. You should understand what to do, right?" Wu Shuang understood tacitly and smiled sweetly. Yes. However, although she was a spirit of order, she also knew that sometimes when encountering such things, she had to follow the rules, but also reason. And sometimes, reason was often more important than rules. For example, if Lin Sun's son caused trouble in the city, she would definitely do something about it. But how to do it was very particular. For Wu Shuang, she would probably turn a blind eye in such a situation, and it was very likely that she would even provide some help. This was the ingenuity of using lies in one's heart. Of course, rules had to be followed, but reason couldn't be left behind. Wu Shuang wasn't so stupid that she couldn't even understand this point. "Go," Lin Sun said. Wu Shuang instantly turned into a beam of light and flew into the sky. And Lin Sun began to move again. Next was to open up the secret space realm. This wasn't difficult for Lin Sun. He had the secret world of core, primordial realm, spiritual realm, Zen realm, and sorcerer realm. Among them, primordial realm was used by the descendants of Yuan sect's ancestral court. Spiritual realm still belonged to the ancestral court of Spirit sect. As for Zen realm and sorcerer realm, they could be used by Lin family, Luo family, and other clans. In addition, Lin Sun also has many ancient divine mountains in his hands, such as the divine mountains refined by the ninth heaven after he flattened the 8 eternal god clans, and the divine mountains refined by the Ji clan after he annihilated them. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that any of the divine mountains Lin Sun took out could satisfy the cultivation of an eternal realm expert. And now, Lin Sun planned to refine all these secret realms and divine mountains into the divine city of fortune. This was destined to be a huge and complicated project. Fortunately, Lin Sun wasn't short of time. On the 3rd day after Lin Sun's return, some of the God Clan forces in the ruins of fortune sent envoys to express their willingness to offer the divine order power of their clans. 7 days later, all the major God clans in the world sent envoys, each with their divine order and clan treasure. Lin Sun left all these matters to Wu Yang and the others. Later, Lin Sun found out that the divine forces in the hundreds of epics in the ruins of fate had offered 33 divine-level orders and 81 kinds of treasures of their clans. This was undoubtedly a batch of priceless treasures, enough to make any eternal realm expert go crazy. Lin Sun's method was very simple. He used his name to announce 3 things to the world. First, in the future, the divine city of fortune would be open to all the major god clans in the world, allowing cultivators to trade, cultivate, and communicate with each other. This was to allow the people from the eternal realm to completely integrate into the vast world of the ruins of fortune. They could exchange their needs with each other, and, at the same time, they could also improve themselves. Think about it. The integration and exchange of hundreds of epochs in the divine city of fortune was enough to bring great benefits to anyone. This would also have a profound and long-term impact on the path of cultivation. It could be said that if this situation continued, the various cultivation civilizations would very likely merge into a new, different, unified civilization. When they learned of this, all the major god clans in the world were stirred. Countless cultivators were filled with excitement and longing. Senior Lin wants to use the divine city of fortune as the foundation to unify the cultivation civilizations of the world and bring benefits to all generations. Senior Lin's actions can be said to be meritorious to the current generation and benefit the future generations. Some of the god clans who had expressed their allegiance to Lin Sun on the surface, but were actually filled with hatred in their hearts, couldn't help but be shocked when they learned of this. How could they not know the significance of Lin Sun's actions? In the past, the divine city of fortune was the only place where the major god clans of the world interacted with each other. But at that time, only cultivators below the eternal path of Tao could enter. Moreover, the rules in the city had always been controlled by the top god clans. The order was chaotic, and although there were exchanges between the major god clans, there were more conflicts and collisions. But things were different now. Even eternal realm existences who had surpassed the realm of rules could enter and leave the city from a young age. Moreover, Lin Sun had already established the various rules of the divine city of fortune. Who in the world would dare to disobey them? In this way, the divine city of fortune was bound to become more and more prosperous, and the exchanges and integration between the various god clans were bound to become more frequent and smooth. And this was just the first announcement Lin Sun made to the world. If the impact of the first announcement would only be reflected in the years to come, then the second announcement would excite all the major god clans of the world. I guarantee in my name that within 10,000 years, if the major god clans of the world have no disloyal or hostile intentions, they will all have the opportunity to take away the divine level orders and the most precious treasures of their clans. These were Lin Sun's original words. At first, when they heard this news, the major god clans of the world couldn't believe it. After all, those were the divine level orders and the most precious treasures of their clans. They were the supreme treasures that most cultivators in the world dreamed of, who would only spit them out after eating them. But Lin Sun had done it. Even if it was just a promise now, it was already great news for the major god clans of the world. In this world, what could be more joyous than regaining the most precious treasure that had been lost? One must know that the divine level orders and the most precious treasures of their clans were the foundation of their foothold. It turns out that Senior Lin is not an unreasonable person. There is no need to mention the past grievances. Senior Lin has forgiven us for the mistakes we have made. How can we still take it to heart? From now on, we should be grateful for Senior Lin's kindness and never have any hostility towards Senior Lin again. How can people not be convinced by such a broad-mindedness and courage? Alas, if I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have been blinded by lard and made enemies with Senior Lin. Within 10,000 years, we will have the opportunity to take back the divine level orders of our clans. From now on, we must perform well and strive to get Senior Lin's approval in any case. Only in this way can our clans have a chance to rise and prosper again. For a time, all the major god clans of the world were boiling. It was as if they saw the sun dispelling the clouds and saw the hope of their clans rising again in the future. It was also because of this matter that the attitude of the major god clans towards Lin Sun changed subtly. And it could be foreseen that as time went on, this matter was bound to have a far-reaching impact. I will continue to add updates tonight. I wish everyone a happy weekend. Chapter 3156. On the other hand, when Lin Sun announced the third matter, it wasn't just the various divine clans in the world. Even the countless cultivators throughout the 100-plus civilizations seethed with excitement. The third matter was very simple. Every 1,000 years, the divine city of fortune would hold a Tao discussion. According to the Emperor Tao Path, Eternal Tao Path, and Eternal Tao Path, the Tao discussion was divided into 3 levels. In other words, existences at the Emperor Realm, and Eternal Realm could participate in the Tao discussion that corresponded to their own realms of cultivation. Those that were ranked in the top 10 of the Tao discussion would obtain various generous rewards. The rewards included a superb array of treasures, irresistible cultivation resources, and even Lin Sun's recognition and friendship. Of course, there was also reputation and prestige that could be known throughout the world. Just think about it. If one was able to obtain the top 10 in the Tao discussion, then would anyone in the various epochs in the world be unaware of it? Not to mention that one would be able to obtain treasures, cultivation resources, and Lin Sun's acknowledgement. Especially the last point, it was undoubtedly the most important. After all, Lin Sun seemed to be no different than the one and only overlord of the ruins of creation, and a casual word from him might be able to change the fate of a divine clan. This matter must be treated as the most important matter, once every 1,000 years. But I can't wait any longer. In the future, the Tao discussion is bound to be the most anticipated event in the ruins of creation, and its influence will spread throughout the various cultivation civilizations in the world. The world was seething with excitement, and it caused a mighty uproar everywhere. The three matters that Lin Sun announced truly had too great of an impact on the living beings in the entire ruins of creation. This is the broad-mindedness and ability to help the world. Even Wu Yang and the others sighed endlessly with emotion. However, Lin Sun didn't really care about all of this. He merely wanted to use these three matters to do something for his loved ones. In this way, even if he was gone in the future, no one in the ruins of creation would be able to shake the foundation that he'd built by himself. After spending an entire 3 months of time, Lin Sun had finally completed the remodeling of Divine City of Creation. The Divine City of Creation looked like a city, but there were passageways leading to the secret realm of Core, the primordial realm, the spirit realm, the shaman realm, the Zen realm, and many other secret realms. Moreover, there were ancient and primitive divine mountains lying across the different areas of the city. They were like the backbone of the entire city, and the arrangement of the divine mountains faintly formed a marvelous formation. When necessary, these divine mountains that were scattered all over the place would transform into a supreme formation that linked up with the 9 levels of divine rank order that covered the heavens and the earth, and it would release a might that was sufficient to easily annihilate existences that had exceeded the realm of justice. Jing Xian, from today onwards, I will be going into seclusion. Inside the secret world of Core Dimension, Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian, Xie Ji, and Lin Fan were having a meal together. How long? Zhao Jingxian asked while putting food into Xie Ji's bowl. 10 years. Lin Sun said casually. After I come out of closed-door cultivation, it's very likely that I'll leave for the Kunlun ruins. Zhao Jingxian was stunned. An indescribable feeling welled up in her heart. Can I not go? Her voice was filled with reluctance. Lin Fan could not help but say, Mother, there must be a reason why Father is going there. Moreover, Father will return in the future. You don't have to worry so much. Who asked you to talk so much? Zhao Jingxian glared at Lin Fan. The latter was embarrassed and immediately shut up. Lin Sun could not help but smile. He said, Fanner is right. I'm going to the Kunlun ruins. Zhao Jingxian interrupted him. I know there's a reason. You don't have to explain. I understand. But you have to be careful. No matter what, you must return safely. Lin Sun's heart felt warm as he said, Don't worry. Xie Ji, who had been immersed in eating, suddenly said, When the time comes, I'll go with you. That way, Sister Jingxian won't have to worry. Lin Sun was stunned. Before he could say anything, Zhao Jingxian said happily, That's even better. With you around, no other woman will dare to get close to him. Even if they do, Sister Xie Ji will definitely be able to settle it. She felt relieved, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Lin Sun was speechless. So it turned out that Jingxian was worried that he would flirt outside. But the point was he that kind of person? Lin Sun felt wronged. Suddenly, he noticed that Lin Fan was secretly laughing not far away. He immediately said angrily, "Are you happy to see your father make a fool of himself?" Lin Fan immediately pulled a long face and held back his laughter. He shook his head and said, "Father, I think mother's intentions are also very good. As a man, he must refuse the temptation that he should refuse." Zhao Jingxian reached out and knocked Lin Fan's forehead. She said with a serious expression, "Fan, you can't think that way. You can't be like your father. You're the only son of our family. I'm still waiting for you to spread our family's branches. In the future, the more wives you marry, the better. It's normal for cultivators like us to have 3 or 4 wives. Of course, if 3 or 4 wives aren't enough, you can marry more. In short, the more the better." Lin Sun was stunned. Lin Fan was also stunned. The father and son stared at each other with question marks in their hearts. How could this be? At this time, Lin Wenjing and Luo Qingxuan came. As soon as Lin Sun invited his parents to sit down, Luo Qingxuan said with a smile, "Speaking of which, Sun is also the only son of our family. Now, I can't wait for him to marry Xia's solstice as soon as possible and give me more grandchildren. In this way, the pressure on Lin Fan won't be so heavy." His words caused the atmosphere to become subtle. Just now, Zhao Jingxian was talking about Lin Fan's uniqueness. Now, Luo Qingxuan was also talking about Lin Sun's being the only son of the family. The two mothers had a tacit understanding in treating their sons. However, this tacit understanding made Zhao Jingxian feel a sudden increase in pressure. After thinking about it, she said with a smile, "Of course, I want to welcome Xia's solstice into the family as soon as possible, but it also depends on his will. If he really wants to marry more women in the future, I will also accept it." She had already glanced at Lin Sun. "Well, I'm very pleased that Jingxian can think like this." Luo Qingxuan smiled with satisfaction and also looked at Lin Sun. The atmosphere was very strange. Lin Fan sensed it and tactfully kept his mouth shut. Lin Sun suddenly felt a headache. He couldn't help looking at Lin Wenjing beside him and said, "Father, why don't you say anything?" Lin Wenjing ate and drank by himself and said vaguely, "Don't drag me into this. You can decide this kind of thing by yourself." He had a calm demeanor, as if he had nothing to do with it. Lin Sun stood up directly and said, "You guys continue to eat. I'm done. I'll go work first." Without waiting for the others to respond, he hurried away. "Ha! Father actually slipped away." Lin Fan couldn't help laughing. Interesting, too interesting. But the next moment, Lin Fan smiled. He didn't come out. Luo Qingxuan and Zhao Jingxian looked at him with kind eyes. Luo Qingxuan said gently, "Fan, what your mother said just now is right. You are shouldering the heavy responsibility of our Lin family. Look, your grandmother also agrees with my suggestion. Fan, you can't let us down." Zhao Jingxian also said with a smile. Now, it was Lin Fan's turn to be like sitting on pins and needles. He suddenly wanted to follow his father's example and slip away. From this day onwards, Lin Sun began to retreat in the secret world of heart. The creation realm is the second realm of the eternal path. After reaching this realm, cultivation will become extremely difficult. The reason is that to improve one's cultivation base, one needs to refine the rule power. The most complete rule power in the world is generally contained in the divine order, and the divine order has always been an extremely scarce cultivation resource in this world. All of this caused the path of cultivation of existences in the creation realm to be filled with difficulties. But for Lin Sun, none of this is a problem. In these years, he first swept the major god clans of the ninth heaven, then successively destroyed the witch sect, Zen sect, and even the Ji clan of the ruins of fortune was flattened by him. Just these experiences have allowed him to obtain a large number of divine order and various divine medicines that are enough to satisfy the cultivation of the creation realm. In addition, there have been hundreds of eternal realm characters suppressed by him over the years. After being refined by the 5 sequences of the ultimate ruins, all of them could be refined into the eternal law comparable to the divine order. Under such circumstances, for Lin Sun, the cultivation of the creation realm is even easier than the cultivation of the transgression realm. Time passed, 1 year after another. The brand new divine creation city became bustling and prosperous once more. Along with the passage of time, cultivators from the various cultivation civilizations in the world gathered here from all over the world. They were either here to cultivate, to trade, or to communicate with each other. Moreover, with the various divine order controlled by Wu Shuang, the city seemed to be peaceful and prosperous. Regardless of cultivation base, everyone behaved according to the rules. Even the powerful existences of the eternal realm didn't dare to cause trouble in the city. All of this made the divine city of fortune exude an orderly and prosperous atmosphere. And everyone in the primordial realm also quickly integrated into the divine city of fortune. Every day, they came into contact with cultivators from different eras and civilizations, which broadened their horizons and benefited a lot. Wu Yang and the others, who saw all of this, couldn't help but look forward to it. Under Lin Sun's influence, perhaps one day, the civilizations of the various eras in the world can really merge together, forming a unified cultivation era. The only thing that made people feel uneasy was that the surroundings of the ruins of fortune were still covered by the power of the mastermind behind the scenes, like an invisible cage. However, whether it was the crisis of the end of an era, the 5 signs of decay that targeted all living beings in the world, or the great silence lifeless tribulation that targeted eternal figures, none of them would happen in the divine city of fortune. In fact, for the cultivators of the various eras in the ruins of fortune, they never had to worry about the impact of the end of an era. Even the great silence lifeless tribulation was only a sharp sword hanging over the heads of eternal realm figures, and as long as they hid in the divine city of fortune, they didn't have to worry about being attacked. In short, since Lin Sun took charge of the divine city of fortune, the ruins of fortune ushered in an unprecedented period of peace and tranquility. All of this was seen by all living beings in the world, and they were more and more grateful to Lin Sun. Tomorrow, the plot of Kunlun Ruins will start. Chapter 31:57. 10 years later, Lin Sun walked out of his closed-door cultivation. Now, he was already at the middle stage of creation realm, only a step away from the late stage. However, it was also this step that caused Lin Sun's cultivation to hit a bottleneck. This bottleneck could not be broken by refining divine order, nor could it be broken by closed-door cultivation. It needed to be settled and tempered. Lin Sun was not surprised, and he was confident that with his current combat strength, he was not afraid of the threat from the boundless realm. When he had just broken through to the creation realm, he could defeat enchanting a boundless realm existence, let alone now that he was at the middle stage of creation realm. Walking out of the cave residence, Lin Sun did not disturb anyone. He left the secret realm of creation and walked into the divine city of creation. Compared to the desolate desolation of 10 years ago, the city had become incomparably bustling. Figures could be seen everywhere as they rubbed shoulders with each other, and all sorts of clamorous and bustling sounds rose and fell. Lin Sun's aura was restrained, so no one noticed his existence when he walked, so he did not attract any attention along the way. Just like that, he walked and looked around. Cultivators from different eras and civilizations could be seen everywhere. They came from different clans and creatures with strange appearances. Their cultivations varied from high to low. The strong ones were at the eternal realm, while the weak ones were only at the saint realm. But no matter who it was, they were calm and peaceful, without any disputes. When everyone obeyed the rules of the city, a peaceful and prosperous scene was formed. Lin Sun also saw cultivators from Lin family, Luo family, Ji clan, and other clans distributed in the city, each doing their own thing. Everyone was busy with their own affairs, relaxed, and full of vitality. Because everyone knew that in the city, there was no need to worry about any danger. Lin Sun felt a little emotional. If every place in the world was such a prosperous and peaceful scene, how good it would be. When Lin Sun came to the Silent Night Ridge, he suddenly noticed a familiar figure. That person was wearing an old black armor, with a cold face and a slender figure. He was drinking alone in front of the hall on the mountain ridge, with a lazy and peaceful aura. "Senior, when did you come back?" Lin Sun walked to that person and said with a smile. This person was the battle servant of the eternal night, divine emperor. 13. 13 was stunned when he saw Lin Sun, and then a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. He stood up and said, I came back 5 years ago. With that, he couldn't help but look at Lin Sun up and down. I already know what you have done in the past few years. My master didn't misjudge you. Lin Sun said with a smile, I won't leave again. 13 nodded. The Fortune Divine City is known as the #1 pure land in the ruins of Fortune. It's a supreme sacred land in the eyes of millions of living beings. Even eternal realm cultivators are willing to cultivate here. Unless you kick me out, I won't leave. He was not exaggerating. The Fortune Divine City was covered with 8 levels of divine order, and there were many ancient and primitive divine mountains scattered throughout the city. Cultivating here was enough to benefit even an eternal realm expert who would choose to leave. Presently, in the various cultivation eras of the world, countless youths had come to the divine city of Fortune to cultivate, and it was a goal they had to achieve in their lives. Lin Sun was also very happy and said, It's good that you're not leaving. As he spoke, he took out a pot of wine and sat down with 13, drinking and chatting. It wasn't until dusk that Lin Sun got up and left. He watched as his figure disappeared into the distance. In the vast sea of people, 13 murmured, Master, if you were still here, you would definitely be very pleased. That night, a banquet was set up. The banquet included Lin Wenjing, Luo Qingxuan, Lin Fan, Su Bai, Tang Jiang, Gu Shihu, Old Toad, Lu, and Little Silver. In addition, Wu Yang and the other sages of the ancient Desolation region, Xian Failing and the other elders of the Yuan sect, Shi and the Jishanhai sisters, Lin Zhong, Shi Yu, and other relatives and friends were all present. The banquet was very lively. Everyone toasted and laughed, harmonious and joyful. It wasn't until late at night that the banquet came to an end. You and Xia Ji have to take care of yourselves on this trip to the Kunlun ruins. The night was as dark as ink. Only Zhao Jingxian accompanied Lin Sun and reminded him softly, As for the matters at home, don't worry. Okay, Lin Sun agreed with a smile. This time, he decided to bring the 5 Dao bodies with him. Otherwise, if he had the chance to prove the boundless realm in the future, if the Great Dao clone was not around, his Great Dao was destined to be incomplete. However, Lin Sun would leave his willpower behind. In fact, in the current divine city of Fortune, there was no need to worry about any danger at all. Because apart from many divine level orders controlled by Wu Shuang, there was also the river diagram treasure guarding here. In addition to Wu Yang and more than 20 eternal realm figures, who in the world could shake them? Even if another envoy of destiny appeared, there was still the river diagram to resist. When the night faded and dawn broke, the divine city of Fortune was still as bustling and lively as before, and Lin Sun had already left quietly with Xia Ji. It did not cause any waves. Kunlun Ruins, one of the 4 great Dao ruins in the world. There were the 9 forbidden 3 secrets distributed here. It was also the place where the myriad Dao source furnace was born and refined the famous 9 great weapons. In the past, the Kunlun ruins seemed cold and barren. Although there were many opportunities distributed, it could only attract people below the Emperor realm to explore. During the period when the era calamity was about to appear in every era, the Kunlun ruins would become the place where the eternal realm figures fought. Because every time this happened, the origin energy of the Kunlun ruins, the Sea of Destiny, would appear, and the opportunity to head to the ruins of Dao would be born on this sea. Under the threat of the great silence calamity that could descend at any time, no eternal realm figure could refuse such an opportunity. Half a month later, at the entrance of the flying immortal river in the Kunlun ruins, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. When he saw the flying immortal river that seemed to be falling from the sky, his eyes could not help but be in a trance. When he was young, Lin Sun had been to the Kunlun ruins. He had once fought a group of heroes here, seen the purple figure who was extremely infatuated with his eldest senior brother in the Peach Blossom secret realm, and he had also seen the Great Tao Lawless Bell in the Mount Yulong's secret realm. In the forbidden area of the Ascension platform, he had met his ninth senior brother Gyupu for the first time, and he had obtained the inheritance of the Golden Court scripture and the 3,000 ups and downs. He was also consecrated as a saint here, creating an unprecedented miracle. Later on, Lin Sun had returned to the Kunlun ruins again and passed through one of the 3 forbidden areas, the Tao Suppression Cliff, to listen to the guidance and teachings of the Great Tao Lawless Bell. Back then, it was also in front of the Tao Suppression Cliff that she was taken away by the powerhouse of his clan, Jun Fenglai. Everything in the past had turned into indelible memories that were branded in Lin Sun's heart. Now, he would once again return to the Kunlun ruins. Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun calmed himself down. He knew very well that the current Kunlun ruins was an extremely dangerous place. Over the years, no one knew how many Eternal Realm old fellows had gathered here. Among them, there was no lack of creation and boundless realm experts. I wonder how eldest senior brother and the others are now. Back then, second senior brother Zhongqiu had gone to the Yuan sect and told Lin Sun that after eldest senior brother and the others escaped from the Taiyu True Realm, they had already headed to the Kunlun ruins. It was also at that time that senior sister Ruo Su and the other senior brothers and sisters who were originally cultivating in the spirit sect followed eldest senior brother. Only fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi was in the graveyard of the ultimate ruins. As he pondered, Lin Sun had already started walking along the Flying Fairy River. The source of the Flying Fairy River was a space-time vortex. The mighty Flying Fairy River surged out from it, and it was also the door to the Kunlun ruins. When Lin Sun arrived, he immediately sensed that the space-time vortex was covered in an extremely powerful rule energy. It was like a barrier that lay there, and it was completely different from before. Only those who have set foot on the eternal Tao path can withstand the power of this rule barrier. I wonder how eldest senior brother and the others entered back then. Lin Sun pondered for a moment before walking over. Whoosh, the power of the rule barrier instantly boiled, producing a terrifying pressure and repulsive force. However, it could not stop Lin Sun's footsteps at all. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared within Kunlun ruins. Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air in the ancient and primitive world. In an instant, Lin Sun sensed an aura that was completely different from before. There was a taboo rule energy distributed between heaven and earth. It was enough to allow an eternal stage cultivator to walk freely without worrying about the backlash from the rule of heaven and earth. Besides that, this expanse of the heavens and the earth was filled with abundant fluctuations of vitality, and it was like a shapeless tide that surged through space. It's indeed different from before. Lin Sun took a deep breath and sensed the world as he walked forward. Along the way, he was extremely cautious. However, even after he passed through many areas, he did not see anyone. There was not even a trace of movement. Could it be that those almighties who came to the Kunlun ruins have already headed to the nameless forbidden area? Lin Sun pondered. The Kunlun ruins was distributed with the 9 secrets and 3 forbidden areas. The 9 secrets refer to the area where the 9 secret realms were located. Back then, Lin Sun had entered the Peach Blossom's secret realm, Mount Yulong's secret realm, and so on. The 3 forbidden areas were the Pilgrimage Platform, the Tao Suppression Cliff, and the Nameless Forbidden Area. Among them, only the Nameless Forbidden Area had never been to. The reason was that the Nameless Forbidden Area was the most dangerous of the 3 forbidden areas. Back then, Lin Sun did not have the ability to explore it at all. Later on, Lin Sun had heard from the Great Tao Lawless Bell that the Kunlun ruins was regarded as the ancestral court of the Great Tao. Since ancient times, there had been rumors that the ancestral origin aura of all Taos in the world could be found in the Kunlun ruins. The Nameless Forbidden Area was the most mysterious place in the Kunlun ruins. Rumor had it that there was a broken path in the Nameless Forbidden Area. It cut through heaven and earth, the Great Tao, and everything. There were also rumors that the Nameless Forbidden Area was the origin of the Kunlun ruins. It was also at that time that the Great Tao Lawless Bell told Lin Sun that his master, the master of the Heart Core, had once explored the nameless forbidden area. All of this gave Sun a premonition when he came to the Kunlun ruins. If there was a place that was most likely to find the Ocean of Destiny, it would undoubtedly be the nameless forbidden area in the Kunlun ruins. The second time would be a little late.